Hello, hello. Welcome to Blood and Song, Erionwel. As you can see, we are still a person down, two people down. Dan and Christine are not with us. They're not dead. They're just not with us today. They are working very hard. And Johnny, he just loves Christmas so much, doesn't he? It's his favorite time of year. He's singing. He sang so many carols,
and it was ahead of December as well.
Yeah. It's important to him to get a head start, a running start. And he's preparing whatever holly and sustainable pine trees and whatnot, and he's kissing under mistletoe and
with his new orchard as well. I think he was growing a tree last I saw.
He's growing us all trees for Christmas. So Johnny is unavailable. And in his stead, we hope to entertain you tonight. We know it's not a mainline episode of Blood and Song. For that, we're very sorry. But what we think we can do is give you something that just shows you beneath the surface of Blood and Song and the other sorts of things that we get up to. And maybe sort of deep dive into the games and the events that made us and brought us to this moment. So this is a show that you're seeing a sort of casual version of this, a show that you'll be seeing on our Twitch and YouTube very soon. It's called GM in the Streets, DM in the Sheets, and that is the title for the Q&A type experience that we're going to have today. Before that, though, Brad, very nice. That's a proper Bombardier's moustache. That's someone who's just come back from a long tour.
I shaped it a little bit. I caught my lip shaping it, which annoyed me.
It doesn't show.
No, it's right on the inside edge. You know where all the vinegar sits when you eat chips.
yeah, the salt and vinegar well. Yeah.
Couldn't be more British, could you? My bloody salt and vinegar.
I've gone for a sort of three-pronged, the trident. I've sort of gone for the trident approach. I hope it's not cheating because it doesn't connect, you see. So I
think it's called the Poseidon, mate.
It's called the Poseidon's mighty trident. And I'm hoping that it's not breaking any rules. But tomorrow, which is the last, am I right? Is thinking it's the last day tomorrow, the 30th.
The 30th.
We've got 31st. Yeah.
There's no 31st of November now.
So I was going to do the rhyme in my head, but then I thought that's a little too much. The 30 days.
Just do it's the fingers.
You did it anyway.
I did it anyway. So yes, on the 30th day tomorrow, I'm going to go only moustache, and we're going to chuck it out on our socials so that anyone tomorrow who wants to do a last minute sort of Movember donation can do so.
I think you should do a live shave on Monday.
I suppose
that'd be a really short fucking shave. Just done.
That's actually that's not a bad idea, Joffrey.
And then you risk cutting yourself, though, don't you, Brad?
Yeah.
Oh no!
If you do it that quickly, come on, mate.
Don't need to.
I've got an electric razor, so I could give it.
The only thing I worry about is when it gets this thin, but also quite long, it gets caught because the hair's thick.
Oh yeah, that wasn't pleasant. 2 minutes before stream, I forgot, and I had to run upstairs and give it the old once over. But yeah, so that's Movember. But at the same time, you can find that stuff on our socials, which Ryan, I believe, I've written it down. It's Blood Song Party on Twitter. Is that right? And Blood and Song on Instagram. Okay.
Well, I guess you don't need me to do socials anymore. You can take that over from me now.
Well, listen, before we get into we'll get into where you are and why you're in a wonderful hotel room.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna ask some sort of general question. I'm not gonna dig too deep today because a lot of this is unscheduled, so a lot of people are not expecting to be grilled. But eventually I might. I mean, down the line in
we should expect a grilling. We should expect
there will be a grilling down the line. I'm interested in doing like a real deep dive into the sort of the reasons why we get into the sorts of subculture and the
be
sort
prepared.
Of
be prepared for a hell of a lot of.
Yeah. Maybe we'll leave yours till the end, Bradley. You're one-on-one. But we're also happy. So while I'm asking questions, we're happy for anybody to ask questions in the chat. You can ask on Twitter and YouTube now. You can ask live, or if you're in the sort of past or future watching this somewhere, you can ask us on our Twitter and Instagram, and we will do our best to answer the next time we have one of these sorts of things. So So Ryan, why don't you tell us just before we dig into this why you're in a hotel room? Just in case
I am using this platform to launch my OnlyFans account, and I'm doing the first cam show.
Mate,
No,
they're
I'm
not
kidding.
doing adult stuff anymore.
Oh yeah, no, of
They
course,
moved away
yeah,
from
are
that.
they? No, I have accepted a role up in Nottingham to work for a video games company. So long time in the making, and I'm up here for my first day, which is it's interesting. First day, got to do all the inductions, meet everyone for the teams, and then after which I will be permanently moving up north. So it's exciting. It's very exciting, but
is Nottingham considered up north?
No,
It's
the Midlands.
Okay.
It's the Midlands.
I just wanted to make sure because people up north might be a bit.
But like, I bet the thing is, I'm talking to Londoners up north.
Yeah, that's it. Anyone at the London Divide, that's north.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah, anyone above the Thames, it's too far north for me. Just north. So I'm moving up here soon. So it's
great.
It's going to be good.
Yeah.
Got a load of cool swag. So
awesome. That's what you're there for, really.
Yeah, and then I'm going to go pretty comfy jumper. So I'm happy about that.
Oh, very nice.
Thanks, mate.
Anyone else? Anyone else have an interesting week? Anything they want to share before I sort of go hard? I do my Paxman thing. Was he good? Did he grill people? I don't know. I'm so out of touch.
I think Paxman was a griller. Yeah,
Paxman was a griller, wasn't he?
Paxman was a griller.
He put a couple of politicians on that barbecue, didn't he? So has anyone else been getting up to anything interesting this week?
No,
see, we're missing the interesting people. I knew it was getting up there.
Yeah.
Why'd I bother? Honestly.
Yeah. All my interesting stuff is like next week when I'm just going to be whole hog actually working properly.
No, I don't want to hear about that.
Josh, exactly.
Say something.
Yeah, I mean, no, just I'm getting towards the Christmas show end of the school term. And finishing the last touches. I discovered that there are some innocent lines that you can't write for Spanish native English theatre. So if you have a kid playing Abu the monkey in Aladdin, and you have him say "I love peanuts" in a Spanish accent, doesn't work. So I've had to do some rewrites.
I wouldn't.
So a giggle, lots of giggling.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't rewrite that.
yeah, that's what theatre's about, right? Yeah.
You just got to practice the poker face and make sure all the students are just well aware. No, peanuts. Stop giggling.
Which none of us could do last week after the comments.
But you're terrible, each of you. Like you blamed my face.
We got our asses kicked by Johnny and Christine. Didn't we, for that?
Someone has now clipped that on our Twitch. So if you go to,
I'll have you know, I berated you lot. I said you behaved like children.
In your head,
and then I giggled
just as hard.
I just didn't think Gash itself was that funny. It was us sort of finding it a bit funny.
Yeah,
I was
and then trying not to laugh.
My problem was looking at Sean and Ryan's faces because both of them immediately went like this.
By the SWAT, right? I'm going to call Christine the SWAT, and by the teacher, right? By day and by night. We got told off simply because we were laughing at each other, right? Classic schoolyard stuff.
Terrible.
Yeah, that was good. So anyone can go back and watch that previous episode. It was it was a fascinating episode. Tensions were high on the in the amongst the characters, and it left us at quite an interesting cliffhanger. So definitely go back and watch us try and act like adults in the face of Johnny saying the word gash. But yeah, listen, Brad, we haven't got an intro for this, but if you just roll the tape, then when we come back, we'll do some questions.
All right, see you in a sec.
Right. We definitely haven't been still laughing at the word gash during the break. Yeah. So, okay. The thing is, the reason why I'm interested in this sort of thing, and I'm glad you guys are up for it as well, is that things like D&D, they role-playing games, video games, other sorts of entertainment that spins off of this, card games, everything that sort of sits in this world. It all comes from a place of escapism and often sort of subculture, and it often comes from the underground. It's something that sort of bubbles up. It's a desire, it's a need. And I think that that it's now become popular, and I'm all for that. I mean, I think it's wonderful when to not gatekeep and to allow it to sort of flourish is fantastic, and to see where it gets taken. But often these things, sort of a love of martial arts movies, or a sort of a deep love of film noir, hard-boiled noir, and like you find these little things in the world and you connect to them, and they speak to you in a certain way, and then you find the communities, or maybe the other way around. Maybe you find the communities and then you find the sort of work within it. So I'm just fascinated by what brings us to this point, like everything that brings us to this point. We're not going to talk about everything today, but includes the technology, the stuff you do behind
life
the
stories
scenes.
Coming over.
Well, maybe that's a good place to start. I mean, a life story is a good place to start, because I think that fundamentally the things that we're doing right now, expressing ourselves on stream, creating characters, working together, the teamwork in front and behind the camera, and how people weave in and out of that all comes from, I think it comes from a place. It starts at the kernel, this moment a long time ago, or several moments, sort of when we're young, and they're different for everybody, of course. But I don't know. It's like I'm just going to briefly say that I got kicked out of my design and technology class every lesson. Right? I can't remember the teacher's name, but he hated me. And the reason he kicked me out was because I was talking too much. But the reason I was talking too much is because I didn't care about making a cam, which, by the way, after however many years I was in secondary school, that's all I made. I made a cam. It was, just a piece of wood. It was about half an inch thick. That's it. And it just, it was useless. It didn't fit into anything. But anyway, what I got out of those lessons instead was I was in a class with a few people from another class, Charlotte, Richard, and Tom. And we were just all discovering about the Nintendo 64. We were just discovering about, we're all lucky enough to have Legend of Zelda, for example. And it was in the days where you rent a game and it comes with the save file on the cartridge, and you just don't know. One save file is like basically already completed, one's empty. You flip flop between, you don't know, how somebody got to this progress. And you're at nothing, at zero. And so I came to the water temple, and I'd say to my friend at school, I'd say, how did you get past the water temple? And we'd have a moment, and all my day was to go home, and now I know how to defeat the water temple. So these moments, school's all well and good, right? And learning's all well and good. But that moment is one of the moments that shaped me. And of course, video games, particularly role-playing games, or action adventure games and those sorts of things, Legend of Zelda, they feed directly into Dungeons and Dragons. So I remember those moments very powerfully. So I'm just wondering, just to start, do any of you remember those moments that are just as powerful for you, where maybe it was the wrong time or the wrong place, but the right thing happened?
Playing Bottom the Weaver in my school play.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
I was in year 6, right? So I would have been 10 or 11. It would have been 10, right? And then so I remember like being in the school play, and it was Shakespeare, and Dad used to read a Shakespeare growing up. And I think it definitely, we then went as a school to go and see Midsummer's Night's Dream. And I wanted Puck as a role. Because he was like because he was the jester and he was the funny kid. It was the funny role, and I was the funny kid, so I was like, I want to get that. And a friend of mine, Alex, got it, but they gave me Bottom the Weaver instead, which is like it's the bumbling idiot, right? It's the comical fat man role, right? The comedy fat man sidekick.
Were you a comical fat man sidekick?
Of course I was. Okay. Of course I was. Yeah. Like I can't remember the guy who plays Horace in the new Cruella film,
Oh, he's good.
Paul
though. They're both
Hauser
good, actually.
thingies, and Richard Jewell as well. It's basically like a role that is him incarnate, right? So, but I loved it, and I had like a song, and I had this massive paper mache donkey's head, and I remember this, but I'm probably remembering it wrong because I was a kid. But they filed us off stage like 2 by 2 at the end, and then it was just me and the kid that played Puck at the end. And in my head, I got a standing ovation. Now, whether that did happen or not is a different story.
Memory's unreliable at the best of times.
Exactly, yeah. But I think that was
in court, is it? So.
But that was for me was like that moment where I, loved being the center of attention. But also I loved putting on a persona, and I loved sort of being, like doing voices and being able to like create and have that creative sort of side of me, creative performance side of me. And then I think weirdly and oddly to that as well, I think Sean and I, we had quite a few au pairs growing up, and it allowed us to experience, at least from Eastern Europe, a lot of different accents, a lot of different people. And so learning how to imitate those accents. To sort of be able to, and then find out how
accents easier. Pass, like as in an accent comes in, you understand it.
I think that was almost my entryway, because I've always been interested in games.
Yeah,
but like, sounds a bit crazy, but I walk around the house doing different accents, probably every day of my life.
Yeah, me too.
Just you live alone, Bradley. Would you like us to visit some more?
Especially Scottish. Right. Like I'm literally walking around the house just going, oh my God!
To be fair, I found in meetings, I would just be like one-on-one meetings with people. I'd do that, and then I'd just be like, that sounds elite, doesn't it? And I'd just like slip into like another accent. And I do that as well.
I do a little bit of that, and I'm Spanish, so.
Well, Joffrey, you're like sort of multifaceted, aren't you? So you sort of write and you direct and you act. So where was? I know people get into it in many different ways, but where does the bug come from? Where does the bit inside you that goes, I think I might be good at this?
Very similar story to Ryan's, and it's got a bit of a resolution. So I started doing theatre when I was very young. We did like a nativity play, and it was a big deal, and I forgot to tell my mum, and she got very angry because apparently everyone told her how good I was, and she didn't get to see it.
Oh wow!
So there was this that she told me off like probably once, but in my head it's like years of torment. So further down the line, with a few friends, we got together and we decided to put on the Pirates of Penzance, and in Catalan in Barcelona, and I played the Model Major General, and it's a fun part, and I also directed with another friend, so 2 of us directed. And I vividly remember opening night, I must have been 16 at the most, and It was a 300-seater. It was a huge house. It was packed full of all our parents and friends and stuff. And I bowed after as an actor, and it was fine. And then my friend and I, as directors, walked down the stage, and I remember vividly, like I've told this story so many times, of how I decided to become an artist, how I decided to become a performer. And we bowed, looked at each other, and stood up. And in that time we'd been bowing, the audience had stood up.
Yeah.
And that sensation. So I recently got to review the tape of that show.
Really?
Complete fabrication. I like, my memory has glorified that moment to such an extent. We got decent applause, but it's not a 300-seater.
Yeah, sure.
If I'm lucky, it's 50, 60 people. And there was a few people standing up, probably my mum, to make up for the fact that she didn't see the nativity play a few years back. But that was the moment for me.
That's how powerful those moments can be, aren't they? When you do something and you work really hard at it, and it is weird. It's weird to think you can act. It's weird to think you can write. It's weird to think you can take something out of, I'm going to say nothing, but really it's out of all of your stuff boiling away inside.
Luckily
of you, and
for
give
me,
it to someone.
I know I cannot act. I've got numerous video evidence to the point that I cannot act.
Well, I'm sure Joffrey and myself would say maybe you just haven't had the right director. You know,
Yeah.
although I would say that I'd say that one of those directors is our good friend
Right,
of
somebody
the show,
clip
Sam
that, send
Blakeney
it to
Edwards.
Sam.
Yeah, exactly. Sam Blakeney Edwards, good friend of our Slash Duke podcast and good friend of the Blood and Song brand. Yes, he's a film director who in his early films directed
long-time
you.
school friend for me. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I've
in
known
these
him
early
for 18 years probably by now.
Right. Yeah, 18 years too long. And he's so when we make these early films and early pieces of writing and early plays and stuff, they're often Sam's a good segue into this actually, because he did a short film called The White Dwarf, which I believe, I'm not sure if we can get it on Amazon Prime, but
I have no
but
idea actually.
you might be able to find it if you search his production company.
I
Crunchy
might still have the
Tomatoes.
Vimeo link somewhere.
Yeah, we'll ask him whether we can share it out.
I don't think we'll be allowed.
But it's a perfect what I love about The White Dwarf, what I love about it is it's that film that you make when you're desperately in between where you want to be and where you are. So I wrote a film like that. I wrote a zombie film about how all my friends were holding me back. And my character, which was called, I honestly think it was called Shane, right? I'll be honest with you. Not even thinly veiled. Like I basically had all of my school friends, all my friends.
It's Shane spelled SHEAN.
yeah. And this is like a 400-page screenplay, and it's like a zombie film about going to London from where I was at the time, Aylesbury, on the Grand Union Canal to escape the zombie thing. And 10% of it is good. That's how it works. 10% I still like. The rest of it is just me trying to really figure out in my head who I am and where I'm trying to be and stuff like that, and you can really see it, but on the page, it's really obvious. And The White Dwarf is one of those sorts of films as well, this sort of moment that's in between moments. So I don't know if any of you had experience with that, this thing that you sort of look back on it afterwards and you go, that was an expression. There was no other way I could have expressed myself except in this way at that time. I don't know who's brave enough to recall.
Well, I don't know. I've never really been that artistic in that way. I've never really done anything like that. So.
I've done it like passive aggressively at work, but not like previous works. Yeah, but not really like I don't know, really. I think it's not. I guess going to university with I guess failing to live up to any high expectations of what our family had put on us for jobs, right? So I wanted to be a doctor because good Indian man should become a doctor, right? And then got a U in biology when I did it at year 12, and had to repeat a year of year 12 basically, mostly because I played World of Warcraft instead of doing my homework.
Well, I mean, arguably that is the direct connection between then and now, right?
That's very, very true. And so then I picked up business, and I did quite well at it, and just business as like a module. You'd think, so what do you want to teach a kid at school? Business.
Business.
And then I thought, where do I want my personal talent? Where do my personal talents and business lie? And that was like advertising and marketing. So going in, doing pitches, being what you now call in the office as having soft skills, right? But like being able to talk to people one-on-one, like be friendly, that sort of helped guide you down this path, right?
Management material,
absolutely.
Yeah, he knows that his new employers might be watching, so
yeah, exactly.
Sort of get himself up the ladder quicker.
So I think that's what ultimately like pushed me professionally to sort of enjoy enjoy talking to people, enjoy being able to be able to work in that environment, that coming from that center of attention sort of thing. Was that but is that moment that it was that.
What about you, Joffrey?
I mean, I think on a very, if I can get a bit philosophical,
yeah,
I think
please.
on a very basic level, we communicate through stories. Stories are a very basic part of human communication. It's because a conversation is, how are you? I'm fine. Do you want chocolate? Yes, no. That's just a practical thing. It's immediate. But through stories, we show who we are, or we learn to identify ourselves in other people's. So when you watch any film, you identify yourself in another character. It makes you feel a little bit less alone. When you watch a series and there's a moment that really reminds you of your ex-girlfriend, for example, and it really hits home, and it's like, how is this possible? It's got nothing to do, but actually it's got a lot to do, right?
Yeah.
Because that's how we understand our world. We understand through stories and through other people's lives.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I think stories to me are, I mean, I've always done, like, I wrote shitty poetry when I was 13 and I was in love, and I thought it was, I was the next Shakespeare, but I mean,
listen,
I've always been very like that.
I'll live shave if you live read one of your 13-year-old poems.
I feel like that's a very imbalanced wager.
Yeah, that is true. We'll do a round table of Zombies Man. It was called Zombies Man, by the way. I don't want to make this about me. I'm happy to hear more about your poems, but my screenplay was called Zombies, Man, exclamation mark. You know, like Zombies Man, that sort of thing. I smoked a lot of weed at the time. Well, that's, I mean, I think you're right. Just to bring it back round, Joffrey, I think art is empathy, and it sounds weird to say these things. It even sounds a bit cringy and awkward. And that's because the way we communicate is so layered and it's so diffuse, but art sort of cuts through that. I think you can watch a film on your own quietly in the cinema with the lights off, and you're just there and you're just connecting with that person without having to be in a dialogue, without having to think about talking, without having to think, do you want the chocolate? Am I allowed to get the chocolate? Am I?
And also there's another thing. There was a shut up, it's my chocolate.
all through non-verbal communication.
There was a thing about how we don't stop doing things because someone tells us to. So, for example, the whole don't talk to strangers. Just because someone tells you not to talk to strangers, you don't get the message. But if they tell you a Little Red Riding Hood story, a part of your brain understands it better.
Yeah, okay.
So there was something about learning through stories, how apparently as kids, our brains are wired to understand stories much more clearer than just simple messages or orders, which is weird, but...
Well, it would have, I mean, that's why the jester, the bard, they would have been so sort of regarded back in the day, because they had the ability to tell a story that could, sort of condemn or, sort of raise up. Go on, Ryan, you've been doing hands of interruption.
So to flip what Joffrey said on its head, I put a piece of, if you haven't already guessed, I put a piece of Ryan in every single one of my D&D characters that I create. Right?
Do you really?
Really? Yeah, I know. I don't know how you guys have figured that out. But and I think it's that reverse connection, right? As Joffrey said, you attribute yourself to like a character, and you try and pull, when you watch films or read books or anything like that. And I think I can't be genuine to the characters I play in D&D if they haven't got some element of Ryan, be that super strong or super sexy or super smart. Like I've got all of those things.
Misguided, vain. No.
Yeah. I mean, but every single one of those has its flaws.
No,
being super hot means you're vain. Being super smart means you're misguided or you're snobby.
But then those things, being beautiful, being smart, they, if harnessed correctly, can do some greater good or do some good, right? Yeah.
And I think that the champion of creating characters with us is Bradley. Like, I don't know.
I'm with you. I mean, we haven't seen enough of you, Joffrey, although I'm very grateful to see what we have so far.
I try and detach myself from my characters as much as possible.
But
doesn't work, but I try.
No, Bradley, you to say to us that you're not as creative is fascinating to me, because the way that you create characters and the way that they're very simple.
I think
and effective.
Why I think I'm not as creative is because I very rarely have an emotional connection to anything I create. Very rarely.
Do you know what? I think that's okay though, because I think there are lots of different types of creatives. Sometimes you just create something and you put it out in the world.
Like when I'm learning piano, it's very, very logical to me.
Yeah.
It's no.
But you're a logical person, right?
Yeah, I'm very. There's not a lot of emotion in what I'm doing.
But in general, are you a person who suddenly bursts into emotional connection with whatever you're doing? because it makes sense to me that if you're a logical person, you approach these kind of things logically, and it's sort of because to me you're very creative, like the tortoise.
I can
very good,
emotionally
Yeah.
connect with things, but it's not an often thing.
Yeah.
We played the Star Wars.
Mostly it's any film about family I'm most likely to connect to, and that's mostly.
Are you just saying that you love the Fast and Furious films? Is that what you were just about
Mate,
to?
Yeah, they're the best films, probably.
Because they're all about family.
I've still not seen the most recent one, actually.
I think that's fine. But yeah, I mean, like, yeah, as Joffrey's saying, like, I think, yeah, I definitely think that creativity is in everybody, and it takes all kinds, all sorts, right? I just take a compliment, Brad, because we love your characters. We love them. However you come up with them, just they're wonderful, and they. I think people will recognize, because I recognize this, is the best compliment I can give is that you have a very simple premise, and then you do such wonderful things with it. And I don't know, because Ryan, you're about to just brief.
Well, I was going to say we played the Star Wars TTRPG that they've just created, and Brad, just take us through your character for that.
Yeah, I mean, we had I don't know, what was it, 15 minutes to create a character, and I wanted to create a robot, and then I suddenly had the thought of mixing it a little bit with Big Brother. So I thought, what happens if the robot was owned by a company where the board of directors sat in a meeting room and they watched through the robot's eyes and dictated everything it did?
So they voted
and they had to vote on everything. It was
great.
So if the robot had to kill someone, they had to vote. And if they got it was like a really, really big conference room. There's 100 people in it. And there was 51-49 splits on whether he should do something and stuff like that.
And the vote numbers were so funny how they'd come in.
Yeah, I was just popping out vote numbers randomly, depending on whether I found it funny or not.
Yeah. Surprisingly, I paid a bodybuilder. So, there's really out of character for me. So, yeah.
I can't even remember who I played in that one. I don't even know. No, nobody else can. So I clearly didn't make as much.
I think it was, no, you were you were a pilot, weren't you?
Do you know what? I honestly can't remember. I did steal I'm just trying to get my camera to refocus on me.
Yeah,
I did steal.
No, Johnny's brother was the pilot.
I stole his accent for my.
And that's still the funniest thing that happened that night was Johnny's brother going playing a fish man.
Listen, Tally is fantastic. We're gonna have to get him on one of these as well. He's absolutely fantastic. Joffrey, what about so this is a good chance for us and people at home and all that to sort of get to know a little bit about some of the characters you might have played in the past or some of your experiences. Just focusing on the characters for now, on your history of TTRPGs, because I know that you've been playing D&D for a while as well.
Yeah,
same as Dan.
Yeah, so I've played. I have two faces. One is the slightly unhinged hero. Maybe Dox is the darker version of that, but so Azeroth the Unhinged was a fire mage who would have been a hero if he wasn't a little bit loopy and had and I played a paladin, but I then have the other side, which is the bumbling fool, normally a bit tanky, like Ernon.
Oh yes,
I played. So when my first ever campaign, I played a dwarf, and a friend of mine was my dwarf brother, and it was just ridiculous. I don't know how we ended up. We could have been two great tanks, saving the party constantly. Never made the right decisions. Constantly tried to do extremely complicated things. Somehow we would would miss the entire fight. Get a party killed constantly. I don't really know how, because we were two dwarf fighters. It should have been very simple, but never worked.
Just sat at the pub drinking.
No, there's a tree. Okay, I'm going to climb the tree, and then I'm going to jump on the orc from the tree. And we just have these really convoluted ideas of how we should play a fighter, when it's really straightforward. Just run forward and smash, right? Nah. So yeah, I have to. In general, that's my two sides. It's the hero who, with a big flaw that stops him from being the hero, or the bumbling idiot. I punch the door.
Yeah, I like that very much. Yeah, I really liked your relationship in that in the one shot that Bradley ran, the prison one. I really liked the relationship between yourself and Dan. That was really well, and I know that you and Dan
slightly planned, yeah.
Yeah, well,
it developed out of it very, very nicely.
You had a sort of a back and forth just to establish, where the relationship was going to flourish from. So how do you approach that side of things? Because I know you're a big lore guy, you're a backstory guy. I know you love that sort of stuff. So
yeah, I wrote a massive backstory for Anon at the time. I know Dan told me he was. So it was me coming in to join you guys, and I didn't really know what I was getting into. And he said, "Why don't we make two characters that might have known each other, so that it's easier for you to relate, and we start a good entry point." And I said, "Sure." And he told me he was going to play, and he told me about Doz, and what it was sort of loosely inspired on.
Yeah,
vague.
We won't say anything in case we get sued. Yeah.
And I don't know. I just suddenly clicked that.
Yeah.
I looked at his, at his inspiration in the background, and I just had this idea for this character, and from then, I don't know. I have a very neurodivergent creative process, so I wouldn't say it's a logical thing at all. It really is. I have nothing, and suddenly I have a very defined idea in my head.
Yes, well, you're a writer like me, because that's exactly how it works.
Okay. I have no idea what it is that turns the switch on, but it just
Aaron Sorkin, he's leaps and bounds ahead of us. I get that, but he said something very interesting about the writing process, which I try and convince my fiance of every time she sees me doing nothing. Is that he said most of the time the writing process for me is it looks like I'm not writing. He's like, most of it is me watching sports, lying on the couch. Most of it is me not writing. And then at the last minute, I write it all up and, there's the finished product. And so I think that, obviously there's so many different kinds of things, even within writing, let alone within the creative world, right? There's so many things.
I couldn't do that at all.
It's a fact. If I was going to
write something, because I'm always bubbling with ideas, but I wouldn't know how to write it unless I actually started putting something on the page, even if it didn't make sense.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. And so I know that you're also writing, Brad, and we'll talk about this later. But you're sort of writing potential campaign that we might want to.
Yeah, and I'm spinning now between making it slightly sci-fi or not. It's like not to pull away, because I was fascinated. I wanted to go down, and we will go down the route of. No, we can do that later. We can stay on this topic.
Well, I'm keen for you to expand on that. You can't just tease that it might be sci-fi, and then. What's this?
Okay,
Bradley?
so basically, it stemmed from I was recently listening to a soundtrack of a Warhammer 40k game called I can't remember the name. Give me a second.
Is it It's not Vermintide, is it?
No, it's not Vermintide. It's a 40k game. So
Dawn of War.
That's fantasy. It's called Warhammer 40,000 Mechanicus, and it's an amazing soundtrack. It's filled with organs and stuff, but it's not the. I was telling Ryan I found a really awesome organ music that's going to be Strahd battle music for the next Strahd, but it's not that. But this is so. The instruments are really heavy synths and really heavy bass, Tibetan singing bowls.
Oh, okay.
Lots of chanting, humming, throat singing, and organs and stuff like that. So it's like this eclectic mix of really religious type music and also just like heavy synth and bass. That's sparked
listening to that
idea.
Yeah. Okay. See that is what I would consider the realm of lying on the couch and watching sports, because that's you're doing something else. You're in a different world, and then something comes to you and says, this is the spark that you need to enliven this idea.
Yeah, but that's sparking an existing idea with more flavor to me. That's not, because I already had the idea that maybe I want to make it a bit more sci-fi, but it never really truly stuck because of the world that I was already creating. But now the music imagining the fights that could happen along with that music in the world just sort of ticked it along.
Sometimes you just need a picture, right? Suddenly in your head there's a picture, and you go from that. Terry Pratchett had you said Spark talks about inspiration in a way that I really like, which is that they're like atoms of inspiration, or can't remember if he uses the word atom. Have we talked about this? I feel like
no.
I'm
about
one of the
halfway
few
through a
people
series,
that have
man.
not watched not read a lot of Pratchett, unfortunately.
Oh, you should.
I think
I know
you'd enjoy it.
they're on my
Yeah, for
list.
sure.
They're on my list.
But I don't
just
know
got
anything
the-
about Warhammer, so that's the thing. That's the world we live in the correct world. Yeah, go on, Joffrey. Sorry, mate.
No. He says there's particles of inspiration just shooting through the air, and if you're lucky enough, you get hit by one. And you know,
Makes sense to
sometimes
me.
you're really unlucky, and the particle just misses you and hits a brick, and that brick, you know, that brick resolves the forces of nature, but unifies the forces of nature. But you know, you'll never know.
But it's a brick, so it can't do anything about
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
And I quite like that. It takes away there's a TED talk about the genie, like the concept the Romans, I think it was, had of inspiration, how it was something that was outside of you, and all you have to do is you put in the work, and if this genie feels like joining you, it will, and your work will be better. And if the genie doesn't join you because they're not in the mood, your work will still be good because you're a craftsman, but it won't be brilliant.
Yeah.
And I like that because it sort of takes away the weight of being brilliant all the time.
Yeah.
And it
Well, there
allows
are those two sides of things, aren't there? There is the craft, and you know, and that's very much sort of in the industry side of the film industry, the games industry, the you know, the role playing game industry, whatever. Yeah, and then you have the spark, you have the inspiration, and that's can sometimes come with other people. So I love bouncing ideas off of other people. That's how I find that the genie I find is in other people.
Yeah.
And
like
their
that.
ideas are often even. I mean, and I know I do this in reverse. My ideas aren't very good when I talk to them about stuff. But when they return back to you, they sort of pick up something on the way, and they sort of like a boomerang, it comes back better. I know I'm mixing metaphors and talking nonsense, but it's like, but I love
No,
that
but,
interplay,
yeah.
you know. So
Yeah, I have one of my best friends.
Next
in
character
Barcelona.
idea.
He
Boomerang man
Right.
throws boomerangs at friendly
there you
players.
go. There you go. It's just
And they come
worked
back straight.
live.
Yeah, he's one of the best idea editors I've met. So you give him an idea, bounce an idea off him, and he just makes it 10 times better.
Yeah.
But if you ask him for an idea, he really struggles.
Yeah. And this is why I think also part of finding your role is such a critical part of bridging that gap between Zombies Man and where you want to be. You know, like finding your role. Your role is
You realize
might
your
not.
next movie now needs to be called Where You Want to Be.
Yeah, we'll pitch it live at the end of this. Yeah, we got time. But yeah, I mean, crossing that gulf is it's you know it's everything, and so I think it's finding your role. You know, it's not to sort of proselytize, but at school you're like, oh, you can be like a lawyer or an astronaut or this and that. You know, the president, but they don't talk
I
about
think
the
a lot
myriad
of-
of roles that sit underneath that all do something, spark something off in the mind. Right?
There was I think it was a comedian, I can't remember which comedian, maybe Dan Carlin. Basically, it was what I think inspiration comes from, to me, is there was a good, he said that comedy is not cleverness or you're quick of wit most of the time. It's how deep is your reservoir of I can't remember the word. Also
Not
begins with-
memory by any chance, was it?
No, like your reservoir of references to the world.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Sure. I mean, you can't relate. No one can relate to you if you don't have an experience.
Yeah, and I
right? If
think
you
that's
don't know
where
anything.
pretty much my inspiration comes from. I just have a big reservoir of references that I just pull shit out of.
Reservoir of references.
Yes, that's your that's your next
Character idea.
Yeah.
Someone
Character
who's
idea.
smart.
That's a wizard. That's a wizard.
Yes, it definitely
With keen
is, isn't
mind,
it?
most likely.
So yeah.
So
So
how do you create your characters, by the way? Because
Who, me?
who's that?
Sean,
Who are you
Sean.
asking?
Sean.
Oh, okay. I wasn't prepared for this. Well, no, I don't know. It's different every time. So I'm an information gatherer, which is why, again, it looks like I'm never doing anything. So I gather as much information as possible, and then I take a bit of time off, like a week off, and while that I'm on that week, my brain is like, sort of just shuffling through all of the pieces of information I've been given, and it just plucks a card out. It goes, right, this is where you start. So I'll go, right, like Johnny. So for Sixsmith, I was thinking initially, he needs to feed off of my Anglo-Indian heritage and who I feel like I am, somebody who's in both worlds and neither at the same time, and sort of a bit out of sorts. So that's why I almost came up with the name first, which sometimes it doesn't happen that way. But I do like a title. I like a name. I like to, I like to know if I'm writing a film, it's got a name. For me, that's really important in the same way that names are important for people, right? They galvanize the person. So I'm like, right, Sixsmith is who he is. So he is someone who feels almost colonial. He feels like he's taken a name that doesn't belong to him in a way. And so calling him Sixsmith, which feels to me very sort of colonial, but making him brown, I thought, that's it, I've got him now. And then I sort of, almost from the name, I sort of spun off. And then it was talking with Dan. So I can't remember who decided we should be brothers. I think it was Dan. And I love that. I love it. I like to feel like my part to play, as you said, your friend's a great editor. My part is feeling like I can tell when something does or doesn't fit. I think that's it. Like, that's not necessarily, I can't tell you what that is. I can't monetize it yet either.
No, I know, but I completely understand. There was a quote by a writer. Someone asked her, in the middle of one of her scenes, a character opens the door and shouts something. And someone asked her, why does that happen? It doesn't make any sense. Why does that happen? And she said, I don't know. It just does.
Yeah.
And I really, I like, sometimes something just fits.
Yeah. And I very much have been trying to trust that part of me. So that's part of my journey, is to trust that part of me and sort of try and understand, remember where it's wrong, and try and acknowledge when it's right. And so when Dan said to me we should be brothers, yeah, absolutely, it felt right, and we just built upon it from there. I can build upon some of the ideas of my relationship with Ryan, so I don't have to think in the moment too hard. I can just sort of pull a few of my worst traits out and then try and course correct in the next episode if they're too sort of outlandish. But I have some reference points. So because I'm not an actor, and because I can't think too far ahead, I only make notes for dialogue, but I don't, not any more than 10 minutes ahead. I'll just make some notes like, oh man, he's got to say this in 10 minutes time, or if somebody says something, he's got to chat to this person. So I have to be very reactive. I think that's what it is. So being an older brother, being somebody who's torn between worlds, someone who's a little his worst traits are some of his arrogance, some of what I have in my worst traits. So because I'm not an actor, it's easy for me to bring out. So that's part of how I felt about Sixsmith.
It's interesting that you say that, and Bradley as well, how you keep saying you're not creative or you're not an actor. But I've been teaching now for a few years, and I've developed a couple of thoughts in my head on what acting is and what it isn't. And I genuinely think that acting is there's the craft side of it, and then there's the individual brain part of it. And the craft is your technique, your projection, your breathing, your rhythm, your finding the right timing, maybe learning how to do double takes.
It's all gone over my head, that stuff. Yeah.
But that is actually only relevant on stage, and maybe if you need something very specific from a camera. But then there's the other side, which I think every human has, and I like, if I may quote Orson Welles, he says that acting is like sculpture. In other words, it's not about what you add onto yourself, but it's what you remove. And there's a villain in each of us. There's a lover in each of us. There's a tyrant in each of us. There's a saint in each of us. And it's what an actor does is remove those parts of him that block the way to that.
I ain't got enough introspection to know which bits they are.
No, but in a way, what this means is that all our characters are always going to be part of who we are, and it doesn't require a big actor to do it. That's how you naturally win, because if you're not a person who in his day-to-day life judges other people and is very like opinionated, you're going to struggle to do a character like that because it's just not part of you.
Yeah.
And if you can do it, it means it's part of you. So it's in a weird way.
Oh, well, shit. Don't like those implications.
Just before we move on, got a quick question from Taj.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Taj has been agreeing with you. I think he's been mentioning a few things about how some of the characters he'd love to make, but also, how he's creative but doesn't know exactly how to sort of express it.
Well, just to interject there, we can attest that Taj is incredibly creative because he will write on our /Dupe Facebook page. We do another podcast. I'm sure most of you guys already know. It's a film pitching podcast. I think all of you guys have been on it here. We cross pollinate quite a lot. And Taj, who will go on, will come on it very soon in a sort of an elite capacity, has been just giving us endless ideas, absolute reams of ideas, like more. I said to him, more than I can ever write, in that period of time. And that I admire the freedom that he has to write. It's very sort of unrestrained, and I feel like a lot of writers feel very restrained, I think, by a lot of different things. So good work.
And he came up with a question just before we move on. You're talking about Six. He said, do you think you or Dan take your relationship with your own brother and put it into your on-screen relationship?
It's a good question.
I can see that already.
Well, Dan will have to answer to his relationship with his brother in relation to this. And we call ourselves the Cuz Bros, and we're very tight, aren't we? The three of us, Dan, Ryan, and myself, and we blur the lines between cousins and brothers, I think, a lot, and we work together on Blood and Song and /Dupe, so even those blur the lines even further. I would say that I very quickly lift how I don't want to be with Ryan. So that's my way of doing it. I just think, like, what would I do if I was at my worst, or what would I have done maybe 6-7 years ago, right? Like, maybe what would I have done when I sort of, and I might regret later, because Six is quite early on in his journey, with his brother and stuff like that. So I think it's okay to reach for some of my worst reactions. So yeah, so Taj, I do sort of funnel it into the character, but I don't think that anything I do with Lak really, I genuinely believe this, I could be wrong, I don't feel like it reflects on my relationship with Ryan now. I feel like it might be reflecting the relationship I had with him, or that the person I was with him, so when our parents divorced and our dad worked a night shift, Ryan and I very often had to sort of work with each other and sort things out together, and we shared a room together. So that's a very sort of like intense relationship of brotherhood, and then it blurs the lines between sort of fathers and brothers. So I like to think that doesn't sort of have too many sort of echoes now, but I can see where it sort of, I don't know, I would have liked to have done things differently. So
there
I think
waves before and they're ripples now.
Exactly. So Six is still at the wave. He's still making waves with Lak, and who knows whether they'll turn into ripples or whether they'll turn into, a tide. So they're still. It will depend on Lak, I think, very much, because he's the one going through a journey at the moment. But yeah, thanks for that, Taj.
Look at that fobbing off. Yeah, it depends on how the little brother reacts.
Yeah, exactly.
As to how
our sturdy older brother will be there. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys do? I mean, Ryan, you've spoken about it briefly, but for example, like Bradley, Joffrey, with your characters at the moment, are you managing to channel? I know you touched on it briefly.
I probably bring more my current self, way more than any of my past selves, into characters. If I brought any of my past selves into characters, there'd be quite a different character.
I think that's true of all of us, though, for sure.
Yeah. I might bring that out at one point when I'm ready to deal with it.
Express it through. Yeah. Well, I mean, like, spoiler alert, but it's been out for fucking ages. But they've recently just put Tiny Tina's Assault on Dragon's Keep
Great game about grief.
And it's a game about playing D&D to get over grief.
Yeah,
which is
really, really good.
Really interesting, because I was sort of like, I started playing it, and because they're bringing out Wonderlands next year, and Tiny Tina keeps skirting over the fact that Roland's dead, and so the actual game isn't like just playing D&D inside of the Borderlands world. It's her creating him as a beautiful white knight that saves the day because he couldn't do it. And I was just like, I did not expect it. Anthony Birch, like, I hold my hands up to him. I love Dungeons and Daddies, where he DMs that. But as a writer, I think he does these really interesting little things like that.
Oh, is Anthony Birch Ashley Birch's brother?
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Is
he's
he
wrote
the
Border-
dude in Hey Ash, What
Yeah.
You Playing? He's
Yeah,
that guy.
yeah.
Oh, I'd not connected those.
Yeah,
two.
I
and he
think she
wrote-
was
he
she
wrote
was a
Borderlands
writer
2.
on Borderlands 2 as
No,
well.
Right.
he was the lead writer on Borderlands 2.
Okay,
Can we
I
just
thought
say
she
as
I
well,
thought she wrote as well. Part of
more
it.
people need to be playing Life is Strange. Any of them, pick any of them. Life is Strange 2 is probably the weakest, but
Still need to
pick
play
any
it,
of them.
yeah.
And Ashley Birch does such a great performance in that. And yeah, that's just an aside. But like when if we're talking about emotive art and empathy and other sorts of progressive and important pieces of work,
And
yeah.
And in the same respect, I think that yeah, I find that interesting, and I think also when I'm only remembering this because he's a writer in God of War 2, but when the new God of War came out, I played that at such a pivotal moment in my life that it helped me with my grief. It helped me with my grieving process. Sort of being, in a game where you're taking ashes to sort of spread them, like going on a pilgrimage.
Yeah, interesting.
And so I wonder, and as you talked about at the beginning of this, right, you have that level of escapism in these games. I know people who are incredibly meek in sort of day-to-day lives, but then when they love playing role-playing games because they love play, like I know a person who's played like over 600 hours on Skyrim because they get to be the ultimate warrior. Ultimately they are the dragonkin. They've got a quest. They can level all their skills up and they can be the most amazing version of themselves through hard work. And if they put 600 hours into like going to the gym or talking to other humans,
if you could see your stats in real life, mate,
yeah,
on that gym work,
exactly.
Yeah.
No, exactly. If I spent 600 hours learning another language, I would be able to then talk to like a whole different subcontinent of
I've
people.
started doing
But
that recently, actually.
I've heard that. I mean, don't get me wrong. Anything can be addictive, and anything can be the thing that pulls you away, a coping mechanism that pulls you away when you actually need to confront something. And games are no different. But I've heard a few friends recently say, "Oh, I wasted so many hours on this game," and I think, do you know what? You didn't, because you needed it at that time.
That annoys me when someone goes, "Oh, I played 40 hours of this game and it's shit." Why did you play 40 hours then?
I played Valheim. I played Valheim with a guy from work because we were having such a stressful time at work that we would like finish, go eat dinner, and then I'd go and jump on and play Valheim with him. And it was it was like a mental health saver for me because we were like building this village, and it's that in being in control, right? No clients telling me what to do. I get to build Ryanville and chop down some trees and stuff like that. And it became this, this great mental. I started playing Gas Station Simulator for the same sort of reason until I realized I was getting like really frantic, and I was like, I'm basically doing two jobs here. I shouldn't be doing this. So, but I know what you mean. Like it's that escapism and that addiction, and saying that, oh, I know by playing Valheim tonight it will calm me down, or
yeah, I mean, there's a different side of life where, I mean, I've been through therapy. There's a different side of life where, a thing should not be the reason why you calm down or the reason why you find happiness. It should just be the annotation to that, right? Like, absolutely, these things they annotate life in a way. So, life is good, life is bad.
Life is Strange. Play any one of them.
Life is Strange. Play any one of them, not the second one. But these things can, if used right, like anything in life, they annotate the experience. A good book.
Yeah, I mean, I would add
good
to that anything can be good or bad. Like games can be brilliant, but if you become addicted, they can be dangerous. I had a phase in my teenagehood where I played O Game. Did you ever play the O Game?
No.
I think we all had that one game that we played way too much in our
It was online
childhood.
and it was against other players, and it was real time. So you'd send your fleet to hit someone else's planet, and it would take 2 hours and 50 minutes to get there and 2 hours 50 back or something like that. And then you had to check, like you had your resources in your planet, and if someone sent their fleet to your planet, you'd have to send your ships away to make sure.
You didn't play Eve.
And no, I didn't play Eve, but it's kind of
yeah, that's what it sounds like.
So it got to a point where I would set my alarm at 3:40 a.m. to make sure that my fleet had arrived properly. And I remember one day at 4:20 being super upset because I hadn't done it right, and my fleet had been destroyed. And I remember looking at myself and thinking, "You're not doing yourself any favors.
What are you doing, man?"
Yeah.
It's no longer constructive. It has become destructive.
Yes, exactly.
Exact same thing could happen with the gym. Like right?
Yeah,
See the
for
gym
sure.
as this super healthy thing, but I know people who are obsessed with the acting world is very image centered, and people who spend 20 hours a week in the gym, and like if they don't go, they'll be like, oh, I can't feel my abs today, and I'm like, you should.
We have a family member who the doctor said to him, the reason why you're feeling the way you are is because you're working out too hard. Stop going to the gym. And he was like, he had a moment where he thought, okay, my body image cannot be the most important thing right now. My health has to take precedence. I have to adjust the way I work out and stuff like that. So yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I think these preconceptions about games or about the gym, about everything, they're all bleeding and blending and moving around. I think, give it sort of 15, 20 years. Yeah. I think a lot of these preconceptions will be dropped, or at least, you know what I mean? Like they'll be recalculated in a certain way.
Yeah, recalculate is probably a better way of putting it.
Yeah,
because I don't think they'll ever be no one will ever get it right. I don't think there is. No, I
don't think so. But I think as we get older and we raise nieces, nephews, children, other friends, kids, like as godparents, we sort of will infuse the idea that the way that we've been, the way that we are sort of seeing body image and video games and technology and social media and all this sort of stuff. I don't know. I have real hope. This is a different conversation. We're moving into post-stream territory. But I have real hope.
Yeah, the future is uncertain, but I think there's a lot of things that we are sort of starting to shape, right? Like the conversations around gender and sexuality and all that stuff. Same as the conversations around body image and
socially, we're progressing.
All batting back
everything
and
else.
So I just want to bring it back. So talking about all these sort of subcultures and art and things like that, I just want to bring it back around to what is the nerdy thing that has slipped through the cracks for you. So earlier on, I mentioned for me it's Warhammer and any card-based game. Apart from collecting 10
I know
or 15
exactly what
Pokemon
it is,
cards.
and it's going to annoy Sean when I mention it yet again.
What's the
thing? I still haven't seen Battlestar.
Yeah, Battlestar Galactica, man.
How are you? Oh
yeah,
still haven't seen
Battlestar.
I've barely seen any. I've barely seen any sci-fi TV shows. Not seen Star Trek. Not seen Battlestar. I've not seen the new stuff that's on Amazon Prime and all that
I would argue that when
not
we were young,
Stargate.
it was
I've
the
not
heyday.
seen Babylon
Stargate,
5.
Farscape. It was like it was Lex. Even the weird ones. It was weird sci-fi TV shows.
Not seen any of them. X-Files. Not seen X-Files.
Yeah, X-Files is a bit slow now. Like.
I don't mind slow. I just don't I'm not a TV person.
At the time, it was brilliant. Right now, it's a tiny bit slow, but just like a smidge, like one of those.
Whereas Battlestar, I think. I mean, I bought the series recently again. So I bought imported the Australian box set with like Caprica and everything in it. I'm looking forward to doing the whole lot again. This would be like the fourth or fifth, maybe the fifth time.
Are you going to do the cat? Are you going to watch it all with Mariko?
No, she's seen it already. I already got my fiance. I already inducted her into the Battlestar Galactica Hall of Fame, and she absolutely adored it. And because I think like you push past that, you got to watch the mini series, which is like the first bit, it's about 2 hours long or something, and it's definitely the weakest of the entire lot. And sort of it's dated now, but you watch the first episode 33, and it just takes you through.
You know what you say that the first bit, but I started watching. I think the second time around, I started watching from 33 onward, and I really needed that miniseries at the top.
You definitely need it. See, this is why I say like you got to watch it, but bear with the actual get into the series immediately afterwards. Just so I think we're in agreement, Joffrey. Really, it's like you definitely need it, but you definitely get the real feel of the show when 33 kicks in.
Yeah.
If we want to, now I don't know if I would consider this nerdy, right? But I think.
Good answer, by the way, Brad.
Football players is the nerdy thing that I never understood, right? Because
that's pretty. I think football's really nerdy.
I think.
For sure, it's all numbers and
it's all. And when I say players, it's like position, left or right footed. Are they far? Like you just, like people who watch football know, oh, Gareth Bale's really fast or whatever. And so, like that.
Did you make up Gareth Bale's, or is that a football?
No, he's a real person.
Okay, I literally
Welsh superstar, man.
Yeah, and actually, he did run like ridiculously.
He mixed around a bit. Sometimes number 9, sometimes left.
But this is what I mean, right? So this is like stat. This is exactly that's that stat swapping, and he's multi-classing. He's a midfielder and he's a
he's a
centre forward.
multi-classer. He's a forward
So
multi-classer.
I think that's the nerdy thing that I've missed out on.
That's
is
really
like
interesting.
sport nerdism, and you know, to be
kind of-
fair, it's potentially it's never affected me in a job role, but I had a housemate who one of the questions when they were like, "Let me get to know you. What football team do you support?" And if I didn't have, you know,
It's
he had
like
a
one of the
massive
most
conversation
common
with me.
questions I've ever been asked by
And
strangers, at least.
I don't-
yeah.
I
Very
don't
British.
have that.
What do you do for a job, a day job, and what football team do you support? That's the sort of English staple set of questions to ask, isn't it? I don't know what it's like in Barcelona, Joffrey, or in Spain.
Well, I think probably outside of Barcelona, it's a lot more usual. But in Barcelona, I think it's a given that you support Barcelona.
Okay,
There's
yeah.
this thing like it's
I
the
think you
Barca
get
and-
your
all the-
your Spanish citizenship revoked, don't you, if you live in Barcelona and don't support Barcelona.
But I think, but I agree with you, Sean. I think Warhammer has been the big thing that I've missed in terms of like this is the geekdom, nerddom part. You know, I Yu-Gi-Oh'd
Just
for a
tell
bit.
me,
and-
tell me when, and I will sit down and I will law
listen,
you
there's
for
a guy-
3 hours straight.
We'll do a media swap, all right? You watch Battlestar, we'll get into
For every-
Warhammer.
The problem
Listen-
with Warhammer is it's not. There's no definitive place where you can like.
There's a
easily
guy.
consume
There's a guy
Warhammer.
who's done like
It's
I
like
don't remember his
wiki,
name.
Books, all sorts of.
There's a
different
guy
things.
who's done like who's like done the
There's a
lore
good YouTube
of
channels actually. Yeah,
a couple
there
of
is
really good YouTube channels. So,
channels.
but some of those are 40 minutes. So I tell you what, Brad,
Oh, yeah.
if we watch one of those 40-minute thingies, you watch the Battlestar.
I've still
So-
got the box set that's just
I
like
mean,
not been opened. That Sean gave me for my birthday in
Oh yeah, I tried to
6
get
years
everybody
ago,
involved.
I think.
I really liked Warhammer as a teenager, and I think part of the joy was the painting of the miniatures and having the battles together. But you can save all that by playing Total War Warhammer, which, if you don't know the game, it's
That's the fantasy stuff, which is a lot different in lore wise. But that's if you want to play a good strategy game, it's probably one of the best out there. Even just straight strategy.
You really do get a feel for the battles and the units and the
Which
so-
factions are flavored
Yeah.
what way? It's very good.
So
at
that's a
that.
good game entry point. You're saying?
Yeah.
for
Like,
Warhammer.
okay.
War,
Total
for
War
Warhammer
Warhammer 2.
Yeah.
There's a third one coming out in February if you're so inclined to wait. But that won't have all of the stuff. They've done it in like a tier system. So if you own Warhammer 1, you can play all of the Warhammer 1 races in Warhammer 2. And then I'm doing the same thing for the third game, where if you own all the races in Warhammer 1 and Warhammer 2, including all the DLC, then you get them
Well,
unlocked in
that's
Warhammer
now I'm
3.
gonna have to buy them all.
creative
then, aren't I?
assembly.
You
Yeah,
know?
it's only about £180 for all of it.
I just wanted before we
Which
throw it to
is
someone
still
else.
cheaper. It's still cheaper than buying an army of miniatures.
That's true.
true.
That's very
That's
true.
a starter set is about 180 quid.
Let us know in the comments as well what nerdy thing you missed out on.
Yeah.
Like to know.
Because we might know a little bit about it. We might be able to give a good,
Yeah.
because I think a good entry point, like being able to chat to someone. So my housemate next to me, when I was at uni and doing a film degree, he was into horror films, but I was like, look, these are the ones I don't like, and he was like, no, like Trauma and like George Romero and even like Mad Max, the original 3 Mad Max films, and like so he inducted me into horror from the ground up. You know, and I like that.
The
sort of
original
stuff.
Mad Max was probably more a psychological horror than a.
Yeah,
thriller.
definitely.
Yeah,
I mean, like, and then the second one was kind of like a fun sort of adventure, and
yeah,
the third one was like a fantasy.
Thunderdome and all that. It just got a
Yeah.
bit bonkers.
But so I always like if there's something nerdy that I've missed out on, I like somebody to sort of say, hey, I can recommend an entry point in there. So Joffrey, what's the thing for you that might have?
Well, I have to think about. I don't know how common it in Spain. It's something that that is a very part of nerd culture in Spain. I don't know if it's part of nerdy culture in the UK as much, but here, and I completely missed that. Like, I have no idea. Is the whole Japanese manga anime thing?
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's super
Akira-
common here. Like
Aquila,
me and
Evangelion. I have no idea. Like
me and cousin Joe sat talking about anime for about I don't know an hour at Ryan's 30th.
I left him to it. Like, yeah. So for me, Joffrey, yeah. Do you know what? Like, I love Ghost in the Shell. I love Akira. I love the Cowboy Bebop. I love the films and the sort of very Western, if you like, the very Western sort of anime.
The Ghibli stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah, and the Ghibli stuff, yeah, absolutely. But never got into Evangelion, Bleach, Dragon Ball, Naruto. None of is that what you're talking about? You
Yeah,
say that, like
Dragon
all
Ball
of
is
it.
something I missed out on.
Oh,
I'd agree
man.
with that because everyone quotes it or references
The
it.
thing is,
and
though, the problem is that if you don't look at it with nostalgia, it's shit.
Fair enough.
pissed off a lot of people, Brad.
Dragon Ball.
No, but it
Dragon Ball
is.
was huge in Barcelona when I
Right.
was
Yeah,
growing
it's
up, 'cause
huge here as well.
It was on TV at the right time.
Yeah.
So every kid watched it.
Right.
But we didn't have a TV growing up because after my parents divorced, we went to live up in the mountains with my mum, and we didn't have a TV signal, so I didn't watch TV until I was 12. So
Amazing.
I had
That's why
this-
you love acting.
That sounds wicked
Maybe.
though. Going after
Yeah,
the
I
mountain.
did
Literally,
have a
people pay
massive-
thousands of pounds to do that nowadays.
Yeah, I know. But I had a massive missing out feeling
Right.
because like my friends would talk about Dragon Ball and football and whatever was on TV, which is
Yeah.
probably rubbish now, but at the time, it was like, oh,
It was everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you found your communities now, though, Joffrey. That's
Oh,
the
God,
beautiful
yeah.
thing about it, right? That's what's so wonderful about it. Because before I had that moment in school where I realized that 2 or 3 other people had Legend of Zelda, I didn't feel like I had a community at all. I didn't know where I belonged. I didn't know sort of who I was supposed to be. And then actually, video games, which
Did you find that were you a bit of a creep? Were you a bit of a weirdo? Did you not know what the hell you were doing
Oh,
there?
for fuck's sake! I
got
knew
any
it
more
was
lyrics,
coming.
and we're going
We'll
to
probably get DMCA, wouldn't we? Yeah, actually, that's a good point.
Okay, look, I think that's a good play. Thanks for that, Joffrey. Yeah, that was anime and sort
If you
of
want some
manga and that
recommendations,
sort of-
I'm definitely there.
So I think now's a good time to take a break, and then when we come back, so while we're on the break, that's probably a good time as well to bang out any questions you want us to answer. If there are any in there, we'll start with them. Anything at all, genuinely anything you're interested in, anything you want us to go into more detail on, and when we come back, we might be chatting a little bit about the live stream itself and some of the characters, like get to know Docs a little bit, and then where we're potentially going beyond Nurmengard and maybe even beyond Erionwel. So see you soon.
1 second. Break. There it is. Right. See you soon.
back. Welcome back to GM in the Streets, DM in the Sheets. We are doing a little deep. We've done quite a deep dive already, haven't we? We've sort of covered some, art, philosophy, and sort of the, where creativity
Underlying
comes from.
nature of the human condition.
Everything.
I mean,
it's
like,
not important.
I said that
To be fair,
unironically, we did do that.
to be fair, and where Google is listening, so when I picked up my phone, how Dungeons and Dragons is slaying social anxiety. So clearly, obviously,
my the phones
Nice.
just constantly listen to you now.
Yeah,
definitely. Because I get news articles for shit that there's no way that
loads of Scottish news, don't you? Because of all the accents.
Loads of Scottish news.
We're gonna have to save that for the
local D&D nerd
game
in Edinburgh. There's been a murder.
No,
So-
but you found definitely. We know that's a real thing, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 'Cause I had
absolutely.
I have a friend who started dating, sort of seeing a guy who works in a place in Barcelona that's called Axe Throwing Barcelona, and it's like you throw axes.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'd never heard about it, didn't know it existed. I had this quick 2-minute conversation with her, and then for 2 weeks after that, I had axe throwing come up on my Instagram.
Yeah.
I was like,
The algorithms are incredible, what they're doing. I mean, incredibly,
so
dangerous,
advanced.
But
advanced.
Ryan's face got an you might know on Facebook, and it was my neighbor who I'd never seen on Facebook ever. So it was like,
Oh,
it
maybe
must have just
maybe I
tracked
should
the
join
location
Facebook
and stuff
so I
like
can
that, right?
now get my neighbour's name that I forgot.
That might be it. Or you find your dad will get it or something instead for some reason. It was so weird. It must have matched.
Can't
Ryan
ask
to
at this
me,
point. It's
and
been
then-
2 years. I've lived here for 2 years. I cannot ask at this point.
Are you on good terms? Do you chat regularly?
No,
And
not
it's like,
really.
oh, well, then you can ask
"Oh,
for the
you're
name.
fine."
Yeah, it's if you know each other very well, but forgotten the name. Which is
He's
Yeah,
over
that
for
would be
barbecue
awkward.
every Saturday. That would be
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I babysit for him.
yeah. All right, listen. I wanna get started with Doc straight away because so far we've Sixsmith is trying to reevaluate his role in the team for better or worse, and he's going to sort of try and do that through Docs or with Docs. But apart from that, we haven't learned much about Docs. He's a mysterious character. Is that by
Yeah.
design, or is he likely to
Well-
be that for a long time? What's your read on Docs?
So the thing, how to explain something that doesn't happen in a linear way, how to linearly explain something that's not linear is weird. But I've always liked the idea of fallen paladins, of someone that was very good, and that then they've gone down the wrong path, or through anger or sadness or grief, and they've ended up in the dark side. The Darth Vader figures.
The oath broken paladin. There is a class for that, isn't there?
Yeah, exactly. And I've always liked that, but I've always felt it's a bit inhuman and sort of, even for fantasy, I found it a bit much. And this is going to sound weird, but I recently watched Sex Education, the series, and if I haven't said it before, I'll say now. I think it's brilliantly written because it shows a very real world where conflicts have resolved in a healthy way, even for unhealthy characters. Like we get so bombarded by a lot of toxicity all the time that having a show that's actually quite it's compelling and it's brilliant, but it's sort of real. Really hit me. I thought we need more of this, and those two ideas, those two concepts clash in my head. How could you have a fallen, like a paladin who was like someone who was fun and great, and something so dramatic has happened to his life that he's not anymore, without him being,
Vengeance, I am vengeance, and all this sort of stuff. Yeah.
So it was meant to be, and maybe he wasn't even a great hero, he was just a nice guy from a village who got massacred, and he was doing what most people would do in that situation, which is please pray that it stops, except that God answered and gave him these sort of vampire-like powers where he could kill other people to heal himself. And he ended up doing that to save the people he loved pain, but now has to live with that. And that's just, that's where he came from. And then from
There's
my head sort of painted the picture
Yeah.
filled in the gaps, as it
Yeah,
were.
yeah, yeah. No, I like that. It's a really interesting way to start. That's what we all do, isn't it? So that's your starting point, and then sort of in so many seasons time or so many episodes time, we'll see where that takes you, right? As a creator. And as a
I was reminded of a really dark quote from Aladdin 2, Return of Jafar. Right? But it sort of reminded me of Docs when I thought about when it was told. But like, because and I've just got it up here to remind me. But so Aladdin says, I thought a genie couldn't kill anyone. And then Jafar says, you'll be surprised what a human could live through. That's super dark.
Yeah.
So like that, and that was sort of reminded me of Docs, and he was like, getting tortured, and that's sort of where he's through his strife that sort of came through.
Yeah.
Also, Disney, come on now.
Of course, we're also all enjoying the mystery of Doc. So obviously, we're not trying to sort of, get any answers before they're due.
But I think so far I think he's been very. Obviously, he's not forthcoming, but I don't think he's lied.
But he's told a couple of jokes, hasn't he? You sort of introduced him as a funny guy, and
now that to me strikes me as something, because Six was supposed to be specific in a particular way. And I was supposed to sort of channel some of my uncles and other sort of male sort of family members, and then he turned into something else as I started to play with the team. Is the humorous side of Docs? Is that something that came out as you interplayed with us as a unit, or is that something you always had in your mind?
I think so. No, I didn't have it in mind. So, the thing is, Docs initially he's Fae to start with, so he's a satyr.
Satyr. We all have a different way of pronouncing it, so it's fine.
And the Fae are supposed to be funny and just pranky and jokey, but I hadn't thought about that at all. And then I don't know, one day, I think it pretty much was mid-game that it clicked in my head that he probably was the fun guy.
Yeah, with his very dry sense of humor, which is like, yeah. Which clashes a little with Octavius's dry sense of humor as well. So I find it very interesting when characters have similar traits. In D&D, I often find that it doesn't immediately ally them. It may over time, but immediately it makes characters that are too similar a bit frosty. I'm talking about characters, of course, not people. But
I think Octavius has maybe found someone that actually understands a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're both trying to wear the same jumper today.
Yeah, true. Octavius is basically just relaxing now. He's no longer the center of attention. He's he doesn't
most eligible bachelor.
Yeah, he doesn't like being the center of attention. He's no longer being chased or hunted. He's just sort of on holiday, a very dangerous holiday, but on holiday now, where he can which
is a campaign I would watch. I would watch Octavius on holiday as a side campaign, just on its own.
That's the anime filler where we all go to the beach.
Well,
yes, it's only like 12 minutes long. It's like
they did Hot Boy Summer, which was pretty, which was like a short summer campaign from one of the other podcasts, which was funny, where they all went on holiday and obviously just
larked about, like the old Mass Effect just got like type thing.
No, it sort of got like, they had to like do shit. They entered like the beer competition, but then there was no beer, so they had to like go and do that, and then it just got like really creepy. It was quite not really creepy, but like more grandiose. So maybe we can do a Hot Boy Summer in there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think like taking these characters and putting them in situations that they're not used to is exactly how you see growth, right? So with Octavius being out of Chinella, we're seeing a different side of him, which is excellent. So given the sort of tenets of or pillars of D&D, particularly within the TTRPG world, you've got combat, exploration, role plays, a variety of other things, wings of what people like about Dungeons and Dragons. And I've always found that, like, so when I try to convince is I mean that in a soft way, but like convince people to come on board the train of D&D, I try and approach it with what they might know. So someone loves board games. Well, it feels very much like a family board game in many ways. If people like numbers, their combat can be very numbers heavy. If you have the acting bug, like our dad has a bit of the acting bug, he always used to do voices when he read us books, I thought that was our way to get him in. So there's always something that somebody can glom onto. So for you guys, what's the thing, what was the thing that got you into it? What was the thing that when you first started playing, you were like, "Oh, this is why I love D&D."
You know what I'm going to say?
Go on.
It's the unknown. It's the
Okay.
unexpectedness.
I didn't know you were going to say that. That's a good answer.
It's the unexpectedness of what can happen in any given situation because you're playing with real people.
Yeah.
And nobody knows how real people think.
And you don't have a game engine that sort of constrains right?
There's no guides. There's no gutter bars down the bowling alley.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Yeah, Joffrey. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, for me, I think it's two things. First, it's people. I really enjoy socializing. I'm one of those people who charges their batteries by socializing, and so obviously that's. But yeah, for sure, the collective storytelling and the not knowing what's going to happen, because you might have a great idea, but then someone goes, "I punched the troll in the face," and that just
that's
happened.
it, man. So I would say reactivity is what I love about it. You're right. So it's like you can plan, and I do plan a little bit while I thought, well, maybe that could happen, maybe that could happen, and then it just gets thrown away, and it's like you're editing and rewriting, which is my most fun part of writing. It's like you're doing it with other people on the fly, and it's like it's a real sort of it's magical, I think. Yeah,
and I don't know if you've had this feeling. I'm sorry, Ryan.
No. Go ahead, and I'll
so many times playing D&D. So many times you get to big moments, and everything seems to happen the way it should.
Yeah.
Like the dice rolls happen the way they should, and the failures happen the way they would, and the successes. And it's like, how is this possible? And you almost like in the movie.
Yeah.
Even though it's not, you haven't written it because you're improvising, right?
Yeah.
How? And it does every time. And
so
it's like. I just got to say, it's like Gandalf's smoke when he blows the smoke ship. Because it's incredible and it's built by a person, by people, and then it's just vapor. Like it doesn't get. I mean, I know ours gets recorded, but it's not the same thing. It's not like it goes onto a DVD and somebody buys it in a shop. It's like the most of the fun, I think, when we're playing happens just in that moment, isn't it? And that's why it's magical when it's happening, because it's then vapor afterwards.
Teaching mindfulness in D&D now.
Stoicism.
I think the thing I love is the personification of not walking away from an explosion and putting on a pair of sunglasses. That is my favorite thing about D&D, right? Like when you fucking pull the dragon out of the sky by the scruff of its neck and feed it all of its teeth and or whatever else, or literally make someone shit themselves, or not even that. Which we've done, or just even the fact that you as Joffrey said, you get the thing, right? You get the thing. It's that idea of cool guys don't look at explosions, when you pull it off, and that in itself is down to player description and good DMing, right? There's no if someone is, oh yeah, you slice their head off, but as Dan says, you do a flip off the wall, and then I spin around and I grab sixes, and I throw the spear and I catch it in midair, and all of that stuff. You make it more badass. Ultimately, all we're doing is just cutting a guy's head off, right? I get that, but if you sort of do the oh Christ, what was that really terrible Advent Children? Is that what it is? The where they all
Final Fantasy Advent Children's fantastic. You telling about it?
It's like the Royale with cheese, isn't it? They all throw them up higher, and every single character throws them up higher and higher and higher, and it's like that. Otherwise, it's just jumping up.
They complete everything in that movie is weightless. Nothing has weight.
So I think that for me is the thing, right? It's the collective storytelling. It's the collective badass storytelling. That's what it is. It's not just we go here, you do this role, you do that. It's bringing everything out. And Sean, you and I genuinely, and I don't know if you played before this, Joffrey, but we have Dan to thank for that. And
definitely
Michael as well. Who ran the game as well. Being able to describe those things, giving us the breadth, not being rules lawyers about, how cool stuff happens. And even in Brad's game that we're playing, letting the rule of cool is essentially something that I really love as well. You know, in other podcasts and streams I've been listening to, they call it would you allow it? DM, would you allow it if and then or if you'll allow it, sorry. If you'll allow it.
Or
And
East London, it would be DM, allow that.
Allow that. DM,
loudest,
yeah. Loudest. But it's that, isn't it? It's that moment of okay, what are you gonna do? You know, and a lot of people call it the rule of cool. I think that's what I love as well, because it is so bajonka-jink, isn't it? Just completely as a concept, you know.
Well, it's like it's every, you can replicate, or not even replicate, you can, as a team, you can create those moments like you've only ever seen them in movies.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah, but isn't Legolas way too much, right?
No, I think Legolas is the perfect description of a D&D character that someone thought up.
Yeah,
yes,
walks on the snow.
Perfect.
You know,
Yeah.
I jump on the shield. I ran down the stairs while shooting orcs in the head.
And even
he's a min-max, so that's what it is. Legolas is
Boromir,
min-max.
I would actually say Boromir is the best character in the Fellowship, almost.
In which regard? In terms of
just the whole package of a person with flaws that is the pinnacle of good, that gives into his flaws, but in the end redeems himself.
Well, he's I mean, I
but he does
really
cool
like
shit at the same time.
So I like.
I don't know. The movie doesn't show
but he
it
was
too
just
well.
a champion fighter, so he's the most basic kind of class, though, isn't he? You know, why wasn't he stopping time with his wizard spells or whatever?
He is a champion fighter, isn't he?
He is a champion fighter, isn't
he? You know,
he could technically be a paladin, but without magic. He doesn't use any magic.
It's true.
Interesting. He could be, couldn't he?
Yeah. But like he does a lot of the emotional side, because like I know not all of you.
Well, they're very much the human side, because I think like Aragorn in the first film is very. He has. Yeah, he's very stoic. There's the romantic
even in the
side
books, he's the honor and the respect of man, and Boromir is the goodness and the kindness and the empathy of man. And he's more, and they're both different sort of leaders, right?
Yeah. Also, I'm pretty sure that Boromir is actually sort of very human, whereas Aragorn has the blood of.
Yeah, he's half.
Yeah,
he's caught
very much so.
He's caught.
Yeah, he's almost sort of readying himself for being king eventually, whereas Boromir is just trying to do something for his people.
He's just trying to lead his people to not death.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, and that's very powerful, and the ring gets a hold of that. Yeah. Oh man, but listen, there's a podcast waiting.
That's how my first ever campaign was a friend going, "It's like we're in the Lord of the Rings," and I went, "Okay, I can do that." Yeah. I'm pretty sure that was the pitch, and his cousin was DMing, and you know, we were pretty non-digital. We were pretty analog back then, and his cousin. The first day I walked into his house, he was wearing a robe. Oh, I dimmed the lights and he put music on, and I was a bit like, "What the?"
Yeah. Am I in a cult? Like, what's going on? Yeah,
and he put music.
Pass me the salt,
pictures. Please. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I haven't looked back.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. What about you, Brad? I'm curious. I know
first proper D&D session was me running Strahd for you lot.
No worries, Joffrey.
Right. First proper D&D stuff, because tipped toes in it. Tried to play with other people, but the first proper session stuff was DMing for you lot.
Oh, I thought you'd already played.
I played tiptoes.
Oh, did you not even finish that campaign?
No, kept playing like 3 or 4 sessions of a campaign and then never going beyond it.
So you didn't play before you DM'd, basically? Not really. Did you go straight into DMing?
Always DM'd, yeah. So first proper playing was Eberron with Johnny.
Oh wow. Yeah, that was fascinating. Okay.
No, because nobody else I know wanted to put the work in.
And you love doing accents, don't you?
And I love doing accents. And I like writing stories, even if I don't like writing stories. I don't like the writing of the stories, but I love the thinking of the stories.
I'm not even sure that anybody likes the writing of it. Like, I think they would argue.
Which is why a lot of it I don't write down. I write down bullet points and then I fucking make it up as I go along after that.
Do you know what I found so in terms of my favorite aspects of, I think this is interesting while we're waiting for Joffrey as well. interesting parts of DMing. So I'd only ever DM'd Blades in the Dark, which I didn't think went very well, but everybody seemed to really enjoy it. That was with Christine and Dan and Ryan.
DMing is one of the worst imposter syndrome experiences I've ever had and will ever have.
Well, it's like also elaborate in a moment, Bradley, please. But yeah, I think in the moment, it's like when you plan anything big, like you plan, like let's say you plan a wedding or your best man or something, you're in the moment so much that you sort of head fills up with stuff, and only really afterwards can you sort of reflect and sort of bring yourself back down to a human level, because you're sort of calculating and dealing with so much shit. So I often find that, like, so I look back and I think, fuck, I should have done that differently. I should have, why was I like that?
So that's the biggest issue, I think, is you have all of these cool ideas and like you play them out for the players and you think the players are having fun, but you're doing so much work in your head about running stat blocks and making sure everything's going swimmingly that you're not actually connecting with the players' enjoyment as much as you could. And so after the session, there's a slight disconnect that even though when everybody goes, oh, that was a great session, well done, you go, was it? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't actually know, was it?
Yeah. I think that's what it is. And I think the more you DM, as you can see with Johnny, he's very much, I think with anything, you get more comfortable with it over time.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more comfortable you get, especially if it's within your world with people you know. So I think anyone who's been watching the stream can see our characters grow, and also therefore can also see Johnny grow as a DM. But yeah, I think it's that thing of like, you just don't know, do you? In the moment, you're so sort of full of stuff.
No amount of communication will ever fix it.
No,
I don't think any. And there's no amount of going, oh, it's a great game, or that was the best session I've ever had. There's no amount of that will ever fix that little niggle in your brain.
No,
you're going,
I think I just could have done a better job. I just didn't do a good job. But then I think the more you do it, the more you become yourself. The more you fuse what you need to do and yourself together, and I think that's when you can see that the best DMs that have reached their zenith, they have that fusion sort of in action.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I had done Blaze in the Dark, and then I'd done a couple of lasers and feelings with a few friends when we were camping and on holiday and stuff, just to sort of,
and for
like,
us,
and then I sort of had the confidence,
which was
did
good.
A couple of them. I thought I could bring it into you guys and that's what I enjoy the most. So I played Blades. I DM'd Blades as if it was Dungeons and Dragons. So I was very prescriptive and very descriptive. But actually, Blades in the Dark is a lot more like lasers and feelings. So I have to know the world and react, but everybody else builds the story. Mm-hmm. So I feel more confident now, having diversified, that I could actually go back to Blades in the Dark. And I'm looking forward to sort of potentially bringing the Blades in the Dark to...
We've got Joffrey's joint fate system that we're looking forward to sometime in the future. And we still need a one-shot by Ryan.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh, so I didn't realise that was something that had been requested. I can knock that out. I've got this idea to do something in space.
Okay. So, because Joffrey, I believe, and I think we can tease people a little bit now.
That was private, wasn't it?
No, it may no. I think it's good to talk about, because I just chatted to Dan about it a little bit today, actually. I think it's sort of, things have to align, right? I get that. Everybody at home gets that. Like, things, move and shift and projects move around. But there's the potential. Like, I hear it in the ether. What does it say in the start of Lord of the Rings? I hear it in the wind. I hear that there is a joint DM potential sort of side project for Blood and Song coming out by yourself and Dan as a sort of, and I've always been in favor of this. I've always loved this as a sort of co-DM.
Yeah. So do you know the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher?
Yeah. I don't know a hell of a lot about it, but I know a little bit.
I still need to read.
Yeah,
a lot of it. I've read like two of the comics. I need to read.
I know Buffy, and I sort of know that it's sort of like Buffy and Devil May Cry mixed together.
Oh, that's a good way of seeing. Yeah, actually, much better. I usually say it's a mix between Harry Potter and Sherlock Holmes.
Oh, okay, yeah.
See, I always like, my touch point is like the DC version of it, which is Constantine.
See, I thought it was like X-Files and like Eldritchy,
Yeah, but all of those things can apply, can't they?
Yeah.
I just really like it. It's like a noir detective, and he's a mage. That, to me, like, how much cooler than that does it get? Yeah. But I really like the Dresden world where things are very real. Like even if you have the power to throw a massive fireball at something, it comes at a price, and it and it's a very literal. It's not an ethereal sort of, it feels very real when you read it. It makes a lot of sense. Like, of course, this would be like that.
All the best
And they
magic systems
devised-
have restrictions.
Yeah, and the sort of RPG world around it, they built with a Fate engine, and the Fate engine has a lot more collective storytelling than most other engines. There's a lot where you can spend your action to say that there's something. So you walk into a room and you say, okay, there's a gas tank, and someone will go, okay, I declare there's a thing, I don't know, oil. The pipes look cracked, and then you can use the world around you. So like, I'm going to shoot the tank in hopes that it will explode, and with the oil, it'll set on fire. And if you've got the right elements around it, it just makes it easier and easier.
Yeah.
And the roles work with a system of how likely that is to happen.
Okay.
So the difficulty is like, if you have a combination of gas on the floor or oil on the floor and gas and blah, 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 it would be, there's a fairly good chance that would happen. So you just sort of rolling for how likely these things are to happen.
I can't remember the rules, but isn't it like there's like a 2-page comic that explains all the rules?
Yeah.
In Fate
Yeah. Oh my God.
like
Yeah.
that?
So we played it with Dan, and I think something like he made it like very wuxia,
Which is like Jade Empire sort of game.
Yeah, like Jade Empire.
And we played with a couple of people who had not really played very much, and we didn't want to get anything out, so we just sat in a circle and just sort of did it.
And there was things like, for example, like I think I was assistant to the master chef, and then we were getting attacked by ninjas. So I was like, oh, I'm going to grab a bag of flour and a huge bag of flour and throw it in the air and throw a knife at it, and it will like rain flour so we can see where the ninjas are. And Dan was like, yeah, great, roll for that to happen.
So that's the
kind
engine,
of thing,
right? Of the Fate engine that you guys are going to build.
So you
and
can
you
just
roll
sort of
a sort of Dresden Files inspired world. But where is it going to change from that? Is it going to be a homebrew thing, a completely new world?
Well,
of
so
creation?
One of the things that we really liked about when we played with the Dresden Files inspired Fate thing is that it encourages you very strongly to build a world together. So each of you sort of like
that's awesome. Yeah,
we were doing we just done a rock and roll panto in Ipswich, and I don't know how many of you have been to Ipswich.
No,
but
I know of Ipswich.
Ipswich in the winter can feel a little bit like a post-apocalyptic.
It's cold up there, yeah.
It's cold.
It's
There's no
cold
after
there.
6 p.m. It's nothing. No one. And Dan and I one day said something like the dead roam the streets because it's just like people are dying of cold, just want to get home or to the pub, and that's it. Nothing. And there's a creepy church by the theatre. Well, it's not creepy during the day, but at night suddenly it's a bit like, oh, all right. And yeah, we created this sort of Ipswich where there was like necromancers and
spookily close to the inspiration for Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
they just came out of a London pub and thought all these drunk people look like zombies.
Yeah, there you go. And so when we spent a whole day sort of thinking about what the world would be like and what organizations could there be in, and you really flesh the world out collectively, like you do it with a group, and this means everyone's a lot more invested. There's everyone sort of, you're all part of a lot. I don't know. It's weird.
It is more fun that way.
I'm
like
with you.
even with the whole D&D thing, like didn't so much do it with Strahd because we sort of just picked up and played that. But like with the new homebrew stuff, I literally want you to create your backstories first before I do anything with the world, so that I can just fully flesh out whatever your backstory is into the world. Because I think that's just part of the fun, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then with the Fate system, you have all these. So for every, you have these aspects for everything. So the world will have an aspect like Ipswich, the dead roam the streets, but then this section will have these aspects, and everything has aspects. So you can be using these as reference points all the time, and you have a cheat sheet of all your aspects and everything. You don't need to remember everything, obviously. And then 4 dice so maximum roll you can get is a +4, minimum is a -4, and that's really it.
So, and I think I already know the answer before I ask this, but does it have a title? Has it formed itself into a title yet, or can we know about it, or no?
No, we haven't. No, it hasn't.
I'm just desperate to know,
title.
but even if it's when you guys have figured it out, because I love you both, and I know that you're going to be great collaborators. I know you have been in the past, and so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what you do. I think we got to. I'm looking forward to when we can push the title out. When we can say this is coming. Ipswich. That's a character's name if I've ever heard one.
But we could create a new world together. Like I think that if we have the time,
that's how Joffrey woos you. By the way, he says that to you.
Yeah.
So I
whole new world.
I would love to. So I was just chatting while you're away, Joffrey, about how I'm keen to do now that I've done some other DMing and done some other bits and pieces, one shots. I want to circle back to Blades in the Dark, and I want to use the Forged in the Dark engine to tell a sort of original story. And my one, I think, because sometimes I think, like with Brad, like when you have lots of ideas, sometimes it's nice to know what's around so you can pull some of your good stuff out and save it for something else. So it's or maybe sometimes you can have an orgy of sort of great ideas, and you've got to actually, these have to go into a different project. So for this one, I really want to do, not for Brad. Brad's just going fucking, I'm looking forward to that as well.
Fucking idea goes in there.
Smash it all together. No, that's great too, man.
Is it a good idea? I don't
know. But yeah, so I'd love to do sort of, I guess it would be like Sherlock meets Wacky Races, I suppose. Or it would sort of be like a sort of, you're building a racing team in this sort of diesel punk world. So it's a little bit like Blaze in the Dark, but you're building, and each sort of part of the city has a different track and a different type of race. So it's like sort of the desert areas might be like sort of like a Wario's, what's it called, Wario's Castle or whatever from Mario Kart or something. It's going to be like really sort of bitty and weird and sort of, and then one might be a bit more straightforward. And then I haven't really figured out how to use the mechanics, maybe the clocks, to use the mechanics for Blades in the Dark for the races, but I want to have elements where you can be racing and you can be pit crew and you could be doing heists and other things behind the scenes at the same time. So it's all about racing, espionage, and sort of trying to become. So Blades in the Dark is very much about building your crew up to the point where you can retire so that your wealth outweighs your stress. So that's sort of the core conceit of it. And you're scallywags by nature, and you own the character, and you can really sort of push back from the DM and say, no, I take a stress point. It's similar to Fate to say, actually, my character doesn't take this serious thing on. He excels. So I think, you balance stress and sort of hierarchy, wealth and power and sway. So I think for this one, it's like the city, you own the city by winning and owning the best team. So I want the races to be like vehicle. You have a vehicle that you sort of build up onto, and it's like a little bit like Tokyo Ghost is a fantastic graphic novel, and it's got this like a little bit like cyberpunk bikes, and I don't know. So I'm just toying with that as like an initial sort of idea that I've been working on for about a year, give or take. And that's if I throw something in the works, it's going to be that. That's going to be my Blood and Oil is what it's called, because you know me, I like a title ahead of time. Blood and Oil is that. So it seems like we all have very different things. I'm just looking forward to whatever Ryan's sort of foray into.
I feel like I'm just going to put you guys through the combat ringer because I love it so much. Just non-stop combat. That's basically no RP.
Maybe we learn Pathfinder then for your stuff.
Yeah, that's true. I've been listening to a couple of Pathfinder podcasts. I'm not sure. I would like to. There's an interesting talk about Fate and other game mechanics. I found a really interesting one with like, we use a full deck of 52 cards laid out, and then you do something, and then you flip over a card, and that is what determines like your dice roll. So you're like, right, I'm gonna, I don't know, like jump over the
tarot
fence.
sort of system.
Yeah, so you're like, I'm gonna jump over a fence, and I'm like, right, okay, you've got to draw 2 cards for that, and so you pull like a 2 and a 6, and then so you get a total of 8, and you're just like, no, you fall over or whatever. So I think that would be an interesting way to do it.
Yeah, that is cool.
And then also, I recently, Sean, you mentioned learning about Dread, which is the horror system, uses a Jenga tower.
Yeah, I'd love to do that as well.
And
yeah,
it's
I had never heard of this.
Yeah, so you use a Jenga tower, and so if you do something, you then have to pull a block out of the Jenga tower, and obviously then
Oh yeah, I remember
so
this
you might have to
conversation.
pull 2 from the same thing.
I said I had the huge fucking Jenga tower.
That's it.
In my
Yeah.
So as like a
garden.
one shot, if we ever need to, I think I've got an idea in the bag. It's going to be very similar to I'm sort of fusing Alien and The Thing, and I'm sort of making, I think like Lasers and Feelings, the broad strokes is what you want in a one shot, really. So you go to an oil rig, and you're a team that's been sent to go in because it's gone black. It's gone dark. No one can sort of get any communications in or out. Why are you being sent in? Why are you a team of mixture of soldiers and scientists? And then you find out that beneath the oil rig, there's some kind of like, lab and all sorts of things. I don't want to give too much away, but that's a Balrog, yeah. But like, that's actually given me an idea. Maybe they are testing on like mythical creatures. That's cool, isn't it? Anyway, listen, I haven't figured that bit out, but I sort of it's going to play on my love of old survival horror video games, essentially. And I think like the dread system of taking the Jenga blocks out is a cool way of bringing that dread into life.
You need to just
so
like.
how does that work? You take a Jenga block out every time you do something.
Yeah, so I have
certain things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So certain things that require a bit more of a strenuous action.
Yeah.
So, and then if it's very difficult, you have to take 2 out.
So
and if it falls, you're dead. That's how it works. Like your character dies. So that's why it's very much for horror, right? And in one shot, it works.
I'll have to watch. When
so
I pull my chair
everyone
out, then,
basically should have their own.
Tower.
Everyone should have their own individual Jenga tower. Basically, you don't just do one collectively as a group.
Because I'd have to sort of do that and have it on the floor there.
Yeah.
It'd be
well,
about,
it's something
about that high.
It's something that if we
if
streamed it, we'd have to one camera it somewhere, wouldn't we? And
we'd all have to figure it out. I mean, we all trust each other, so no one's going to mess around with their tower or anything.
I'd be hard for me to
trust the Spaniard.
But I think it's quite cool. I think it's a great. There's loads of fantastic mechanics out there. Is
there anything else that anybody else is thinking? Oh, do you know what? Like not now, but eventually, I want to try this game system out, or I want to try this.
Pathfinder for me. I think Johnny wants to try it out as well.
Yeah, I've been reading up on it, and it seems like it's very crunchy, and so I probably would enjoy it. But I think it's that similar thing of you need a DM that knows it because it's a new system. You might spend a lot of your time. Oh, okay, what does the rulebook says? Like I'm listening to the Min-Max podcast.
I don't know how to fucking do this thing. Give me a second. I'll look it up in the book.
So the Min-Max podcast basically started playing Pathfinder 2e on the day it came out, and there's 5 of them who've been playing TTRPGs for like 10 years, all sitting there with a book. So they're all going through it and reading it at the same time, so they can actually. Someone goes, "Oh, is this the thing?" And they go, "Yeah, this is it." So
I'll be alright with learning it. I have some base in Pathfinder, and I think Brian has some base in Pathfinder as well, and Johnny has a little bit of base in Pathfinder.
I think the only difference is the better the DM knows the system, the easier it is for the DM to bridge that to new players and to the audience.
Because you don't then have to go, oh, I'm not sure. Give me a second, because then that puts a doubt in everybody's mind, I think. And
to be able to generalize, like the more you know the rules, the more you know which roles you can sort of simplify, maybe even skip.
It's an experience thing.
Slowly add the difficulty in.
But the good thing about Pathfinder is the way the combat's balanced means that you genuinely don't have to worry about balance. It's not like D&D where you're going, well, CR7? What the fuck does CR7 mean? Does that mean 5 level 5 party members can fight just one CR? I don't know. Whereas Pathfinder, it's literally like one, whatever it is, 1 level 5 monster is equivalent to a 1 level 5 character and stuff like that. And it's really, really finely tuned.
And they've stopped using the term phylactery because it's too religious.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So Joffrey, is there something? Is there sort of
What is it
game
now, a
engine or a
soul
game or
egg?
something that you think, oh, I wanna sort of try this out at some point, or?
No, so there's a system, and I can't remember what it's called, where your character levels up every time they crit fail.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you don't
Yeah.
level up, you don't gain experience. Every time you crit fail, you learn. Your character learns
Yeah,
through their
of course.
failures.
Yeah.
I
and it
feel
allows
like
the
I
character
would
to
just
improve.
get too advanced.
Is
for
that a
everybody
rule
else, though.
set?
Yeah, I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up.
That
Because
sounds
I remember
great, though.
I was
That's
having
brilliant.
this kind of chat with a few mates from Barcelona who love DMing D&D, and one of them said, "Oh, there's this amazing system," and he told us about it. And I remember thinking, that sounds really cool, actually.
Because
there's
like
no
you learn
leveling
from your
up.
mistakes. You fuck
Yeah,
it
it's
up really
great.
badly, and
Yeah.
it goes wrong, but you learn from it and you level up from it.
Exactly. So in a way, you don't want to make a mistake, right? Because you want to kill the dragon or whatever. But at the same time, it's the only way that your character can improve.
Yeah.
So it's
Brilliant.
That's fantastic, and a
That is
really new
brilliant.
way of seeing, and a properly sort of cool and stoic way of seeing.
Because
failure, and,
Johnny's
that's
talked
great.
about like some of the rules where like you literally take like you have to spend like a week healing
The
yourself.
hardcore D&D, yeah.
Hardcore D&D, and then we quickly pushed him away from that because we knew he'd try and
Cyberpunk
you know,
is something I think
seven
he's
days-
going to
seven
try.
days
to
of
be
full
fair,
rest
like
to heal.
Cyberpunk does do that. Cyberpunk Red does it really, really well.
Yeah.
But the thing is, it's a game designed around.
A
It
lot
literally
of
takes you a month.
downtime. Yeah, it's a
A
lot of downtime. In
It
between
literally takes you a
missions.
month. You have to go to work.
Mine would be.
So
Feng
I'd probably
Shui
run
2,
Cyberpunk.
by the
with
way.
that.
Oh, you reckon you would? See,
Yeah.
I would have thought you'd have been great at Feng Shui 2, but you were like, I can't be asked to learn it. But Feng Shui
It's-
2 is like 80s, all 80s action cinema can be folded. Specifically, there are archetypes for everything in 80s action cinema. Can
Yeah.
all be folded into the world of Feng Shui 2.
The problem with Feng Shui 2 is that because it's feature orgy. That's its problem, right? There's like 80 different classes and 4 different multiple timelines that can all interweave with each
Yeah.
other. And so there's that. And then also then you have to learn a whole new clock system, a whole new dynamic system. So it's like although it sounds fucking amazing, only if I would happily play it if we paid for a professional DM. For it. I will, I don't have the time to learn that. Yet something like Cyberpunk Red still uses the dice, still uses the same system.
Still
It's not having to
Gregorian
learn.
Candler.
Yeah, it still uses roll initiative. You still have movement.
fair
You
enough.
still have like that. Those kind of things. It is still, it's all built off the back of Gygax's design.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, to close us off, I will be asking you momentarily, in terms of D&D, because that's what we're currently playing, of course. In terms of D&D, the 3 pillars are exploration, social interaction, and combat. So I will be asking you out of exploration, social interaction, and combat, what are the aspects? Which one do you favor more, and why? A sort of just a brief summary is fine. So have a think on that. I'm gonna butcher just briefly before we get onto that. Oh, I know what your answer is going to be. Before we close off with that, I'm fascinated by there's a TED talk by Ethan Hawke, right? And he talks about, and it's on art, or on it's on art, I think, in general. And he I'm going to butcher what he says, but I would recommend checking it out on YouTube. He says people want to, and I've had this experience personally as well, so it resonates with me. People want to put down art, and they want to put down people who make art and do art, even in their spare time, because it's not seen as a valuable thing. But when you need it, when you're grieving, where if somebody that you love dies, if you have heartache or heartbreak, you go to art, you find it, and in using this art, you connect with the person that made it. It's so important.
People that say this as well, like, where do they think a utopia? What do you think people do in a utopia?
These people that go, you can't. Why are you wasting your time? And then they'll watch Netflix. Somebody had to make that. Somebody had to do the hard thing, which is to say, I'm going to not have as much money, or not have as much time, not have as much, of the things that I could have. I'm going to be, in order to make something that someone can connect to when they really need it, when they need to switch off from work, when they need to connect with someone. So he obviously does a better job. He's an actor. He does a way better job than I just did at putting that point across.
It doesn't have me interrupting you either.
Yeah, but it wouldn't be a session without you interrupting us, Brad. It's what we love about you. But no, so there's something about that I really love, and I think that, like, even calling what we do art makes me a bit embarrassed, but I can see the shades of everything that we've done that funnels into it, and everything that funnels out of it as well with Blood and Song. So I just wanted to say that I think I'm just really grateful to be doing it with you guys. I miss Dan and Christine and Johnny, and I love doing it with them as well. So I just wanted to say thank you, because I think that it's important. It's important to what we're doing is important. It might not be important in the grand scheme of the world, but that's okay. It's important to me. It's important to us. Go on.
So to add to what you said, and it's I've heard it from a guru, and talking about emotions and how we've castrated them, and I thought it's very relevant to art. And they say that when someone puts you down, and you show emotional vulnerability or whatever, and they put you down, and they sort of don't be a pussy or whatever, and they cause you this pain, they've done that to themselves first, and probably someone's done it to them first, because we all have emotional vulnerability and we all have feelings that hurt us. And I think that's even more so with art. Like, as kids, children are constantly playing with the imagination, are constantly playing, we're constantly being creative, and at some point we get told that that's not grown up, or that's not
productive.
It's not valuable.
It's not productive. It's not valuable.
Yeah.
And we, at some point, we believe that message, and we replicate it on ourselves, and we put ourselves down. We put our creativity down, and we are constantly, and we all do it. And I'm pretty sure if we go back to the video, we've all done it. Oh, I'm not an actor. Oh, I'm not this. Oh, I'm not creative. Oh, I'm not. We're constantly sort of bashing our own creativity. And I'm pretty sure it's just a learned response. It's not real, because we're all creative. And that's why, as a society and as a culture, we keep doing it to ourselves and to other people. And so, all this just to say that I agree 100% with you. And I think we really need to start embracing our inner child. And
and valuing it in society more. Absolutely, openly.
Ted Lasso, man. Be curious, not judgmental.
Yeah.
So that is Ted Lasso.
It's the Apple TV series, but there's an amazing sequence where he talks about what you said. All the people that put me down and judged me for who they were were being judgmental, not curious about what was happening. And it's an amazing scene. I watched it. I cry every time I watch it. But it's that, exactly that.
So in that case, let's leave us. I'm going to go to Bradley first, because while the rest of us struggle to keep our emotions in check, just briefly, Bradley, exploration, social interaction, combat.
As a DM, social interaction. As a player, it's a hefty mix of all three.
No, you can't do that.
I can, and I will.
And I have.
And it's mostly because exploration fits into all three. Like I said, the unknown of what's going to happen in a social interaction, or what's going to happen in combat. It's that exploration of all of those things.
Yeah. Ryan, exploration, social interaction, combat.
Well, it's obviously combat. We've literally coined a new phrase for me when I'm not getting combat, and that's sharp blade. That's the combat equivalent of blue balls, isn't it? When you haven't used your sword in so long, it's so sharp.
So why combat for you, Ryan? Why is that?
It's what I said earlier. It's the badassery of it. It's the feeling awesome. And I make very tanky characters. In all video games that I play and everything like that. I like to be the first through the door, or the run and gunner. Very much in those scenarios. So combat's for me. And this is going to be controversial, but I really like on the rails exploration. Like, I know a lot of people dislike it, but I like sort of going somewhere, doing something, like if we miss something, fuck it, that's fine. But like instead of and this is what a lot of people have moaned about with Dragon Heist, is that it's like you arrive in Waterdeep.
No, yeah, guided adventure is always better than sandbox.
So I really
cases.
love a guided on the rails adventure with the exploration, because then you can do a bit of exploration, do some combat, do some exploration, do some combat, and then you sort of open up the world a little bit, or you can do one of these three things rather than like. And I know other people hate that; they much prefer to be like, well, I want to go and piss on the sailors and see what information I can get on them, and that's great. So
what about thanks for that. What about you, Joffrey? Exploration, social interaction, combat.
So I'm going to say social interaction for sure, but I really like the urgency of combat, and I like it when that happens in a social interaction, like when you're interrogating a character, when you're trying to get information from someone, and it becomes like a series of skill checks, and you have to justify what you said through dialogue or through actions, and there's roles accompanied. So I really like the dice rolling. But I enjoy it more if it's like a social combat. Maybe would we call it social combat?
Sparring of words.
Yeah.
No, exactly. I like that. I think that's a great answer. Yeah, absolutely. I can see. I think I like all three of the things that you guys have listed. I love. Well, I love combat. I didn't want to make it about me, you see, but like I'm more interested in what you guys have to say. But for me, combat. It's interesting playing a fighter for the first time. Because I've always laden myself with things, thinking that I can role play all of my sort of stats, and you can't really. So like playing a fighter is so streamlined that I'm starting to reopen up my idea of role playing combat more, because it's so simple. So that was really nice. And Artificer is very difficult to role play combat because there's so many things you can do. So I'm more caught up in that. So I love combat when we gel as a team. When the team, is sort of, and we're getting that now. We weren't getting that at first, which is fine because we wouldn't have got that in the game, right? And I love exploration, but I like one person to be leading. So I don't mind playing second fiddle if someone is like leading the exploration. And the social interaction, of course, is everything for me. But it's more about like I like to be reactive. So I like to see. I don't know. It's hard. I like it when there's flow. The flow is good. It doesn't matter which of the three it is.
Love it when a plan comes together.
Let's not end on an 18 reference. No, so I mean, what's wonderful is that everyone will attach themselves to a unique thing, and then we go beyond D&D, and we will go beyond D&D, even with our Total Party Win brand and our Blood and Song overarching sort of thing. What are we just before we go? Any thoughts on what's coming up, where we're going to go, Nurmengard, how the characters might interact? Anything that's been on your mind? What do we want to sort of?
I'm interested to see how Doz and Ripper.
We're all interested in Doz. Doz plus anyone.
Start to interact with their
not Doz.
Oh,
Docs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry.
With their what?
Yes. Docs. How they interact with their sort of being. I can't think of the right word. Not envoys of their deity.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
Because we all see it in different ways.
Envoys.
So I think it's
that connection.
I was in a campaign a few years ago, and my brother played a paladin, a good paladin, and one of my best friends played a necromancer who spent the whole day summoning skeletons. And my brother's paladin, instead of attacking whatever enemy was fighting, would turn around and attack the skeleton.
That's great.
And
That's brilliant.
It became a thing, obviously, and it was a very funny campaign. But I feel like you and I might, Docs and Ripper
Well, I mean, we even said it when you were like, "Do you mind if I raise the dead?" And I'm like, "I'm gonna turn my back on this."
I'm enjoying Six being like completely out of his depth. I mean, in Chinella, he sort of thought, right, I understand this. I know what I'm doing. And then he didn't, but he could sort of fake it in a land that was bureaucratic, right, and political. But when he comes to Nurmengard, it's completely alien. So I think he's readjusting how he fits because he would have been a leader in his previous role before he got to this team. So he's sort of readjusting. And I think he looks towards Docs as as a possible leader, like as someone who can maybe take the leader mantle, not necessarily saying it's going to go that way, but maybe he will learn from him in a way that he's not really willing to learn from the rest of the team. He thinks everybody should look up to him and learn from him. So this is maybe a character that's
Sean. That's Sean putting a bit of him in his character.
As I'm sculpting that bit off me, as Orson Welles would say. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to Six taking, sort of learning maybe a bit of, not quite humility, but definitely learning that he can take a step back and support in a way that is a little bit more, I don't know, empathic, something like that. So that Docs might be the catalyst for that. Who knows?
Yeah, I had a story theory that is only just gonna like muddy the waters, but I'm gonna put it out there anyway because I like the idea.
I've got one as well.
Basically, we've been chasing these two blokes all the way across the country, right? And every single time we go to a place where they have been, there has been chaos or disease or something. There has been, when we followed them through Cinderbane, there was a sin of thingamabob. When we got to the library, then there was loads of guards and they took something from the library and we don't know what it was. And now we're chasing them to the north and there's more disease and we don't know who they are.
Now, here's the question. Is it Mycenta or Hawthorne?
I don't know, but that's a good question. But and we went to the ruins that they had already been to before us and seen before we got there. So we're constantly chasing these two blokes that it's all starting to become a little bit shady in my eyes. Octavius, he's dumb as bricks. Like, you may not seem it, but he's dumb as bricks, honestly.
Well, listen, that brick could be hit by an atom and be...
He's very wise. He's dumb as bricks, but he is very wise. So he could possibly join some dots together, even if he doesn't know what it means.
I think potentially... I think this is going to be like, and the evil gods are actually the gods that you support. Mind blown. You've actually been supporting the evil gods this entire time.
Maybe. Floki's not doing them any favors, that's for sure.
No. It's always interesting to tell with Johnny's NPCs because they're always layered and they never as they first
all of them.
They first appear to be.
Last question to close out from Taj, which I think is a big question. I've already answered this one in the chat. He said, do you think in Blood and Song there could be a combat scenario where you'll be allowed to do wacky, imaginative ideas? I just said no.
I mean,
well,
I've never tried really, so I don't know.
Like a dream.
Listen, we Chinella drifted in one of the episodes.
Yeah, so and Sean's jumped 50 feet in another. So
I think that like there's wacky stuff. Wacky's perhaps not the right word, but there's like look at Legolas in Lord of the Rings. So Lord of the Rings,
yeah, you make a fair point actually.
It's very stoic and very cool and very sort of like high fantasy, and you still have epic moments like that in the combat. So
you still have the opportunity to do the Bagnet slingshot.
I think certain characters bring the wacky as well. So like Ripper can bring the wacky. He's got his stick. He can do interesting things in combat. I think. Maybe when we go to Intiri, I feel like, and I think Johnny's probably thought about this, that when we move to Intiri, we might see more of the sort of combat that you see in,
just Bangra. Just do we have to dance it out first?
Got to do all the light bulbs and everything.
I'm waiting for the moment when like somebody does the Bruce Willis and like they step out of a moving cart, just like walking speed.
Yeah, or that's Intiri, I think, through and through, this sort of land of sort of elevated sort of action.
I think the wacky stuff tends to, in my experience, tends to come from the combination of people working together. And right now as a team, also because I'm new, or what Docs is new, and we're still learning to work as a team, but it will happen when suddenly you go, oh, if I do this, you can do that.
Yeah, and we're slowly getting more tools as well.
And the more that happens, the more like you get the ridiculous Iron Man shooting his laser into
and like I'm going to be getting more
shield,
which So the moment you can start doing that, like I can do this, and then Ripper can do that, which will allow this to. And that's when it will get. And I think
you're right.
I think wacky stuff also comes from spells as well. When you've got not
Yeah,
got many
that's true.
spells, when you've not got many spell slots, so you're worried about combat. You tend not to use them in social situations quite as much. And now we're getting higher levels and more slots. We just sort of can just bash them out a little bit.
I mean, like, I've asked Johnny for a weapon. I've asked him for a weapon that when I crit with it will auto cast Otto's irresistible dance on an enemy, right? Which if you read it makes them, and it would definitely be called his rhythm stick, right? And it just makes them dance on the spot. Because like I think that's brilliant. I think that'd be absolutely, because that would make it funny that if I scored a crit hit, that they just start, and it comes from that whole, like, you know, getting cast thingy on and raving it out with fairy fire, and now that's how he responds. He calls it the rave spell, doesn't he? And he like does things like that.
I don't need you anymore, Octavius.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, I think also the beauty of us talking about all the other projects that we could bring to the table, with you guys, with the support of people listening or watching, some of that zaniness and wackiness, and absolute sort of like all the ludicrous stuff that you know and love about this sort of stuff. I think we can channel them into the one shots, into the mini series, into other things like that. So yeah, I know we've got some weird shit on the horizon, definitely. So I want to thank you all for coming to this today. I appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. I didn't ask too many probing questions, did I? I think I think you all volunteered all of your darkest secrets to me. That's my method.
Oh well,
That's
no,
how
they
I
were
do it.
not dark secrets. They were very surface level secrets.
We were all, Sean cast charm person on all of us, and in an hour's time we'll all know that it's happened.
If only, man. If only I had that power. It's all in the beard, and it's gone. You see, I've like
yeah, that's my excuse.
Like, what's the person who got his hair cut
that
off?
was where all my charm.
Samson. Exactly.
Nice.
Exactly. It's
Although I can't
now.
use that excuse because it's kind of grown out, hasn't it? So
you've got the long hair.
Yeah, I can't use the Samson excuse.
I did get called that when I was in Greece, so I'm happy about that.
It's not bad.
That's a compliment, isn't it?
It's a compliment.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
So on that note, we so thank you everybody, and thank you everybody who's listening or watching. If you're still here listening to this and watching this, you're one of the good ones. You're one of the people that we like. Thank you for sticking around.
That doesn't mean we don't like everybody else. Just
doesn't matter, because they're not listening. They're not listening to it, so it's fine, are they?
I'll show them.
Yeah,
I'll show all 7 billion, 8 billion of them.
But we do this for you guys. We love your support. We love your comments, and we want you to throw anything you like at us, because it'll give us ideas for the things that we do in the future. So looking forward to whatever next Monday brings. So thanks everyone. See you later.